Morning. Welcome to day 3 of Budget 24 deliberations. Today is November 17th. We're going to start with an update from our CFO, Danielle Whiteway. Then we're going to go into the answers from items from Chief from yesterday, questions from yesterday rather. And then we will start at the top of page 30, going through the items that were flagged. At the end of that, we will go through items that were deferred to budget that were prioritized and flagged by council. At 11 o'clock, at 10:30, we will take a break. Prior to that break, I'll offer an opportunity for council for in-camera questions around 10:30. So if you have in-camera questions as we're going along the process, keep those close to them, and we will get to those when we have an in-camera session. That's everything. I'll turn it over to the CFO, Ms. Whiteway.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Good morning, Council. If I could share my screen, please. I want to give an update from the results of the first 2 days of budget deliberations. We are now at a 4.9% required tax increase for 2024. Sorry, my apologies. One moment. Okay, well, I could provide a verbal update. So for now, there's a 4.9% tax increase for 2024. The original proposed budget was at 6.09%. Yesterday, many capital decisions were made. This included a reduction in the proposed capital tax of $1.25 million. So now the budget has capital tax included of $8,625,000. I additionally did want to give an update to Council on the Strategic Initiatives Fund and the results from yesterday's decisions. So when we came into budget deliberations, there was $360,000 available for future use. Within the 24 to 27 capital plan, there is proposed projects totaling $140,000. That's to support the National Aboriginal Hockey Championships and the Special Olympics Alberta Summer Games. Yesterday, a motion was made to unfund covered outdoor structures. This allowed for an additional $1 million to be added to the available funds within Council Strategic Initiatives Fund. So now the closing funds available are $1,220,000. And I did want to highlight this as the Strategic Initiatives Fund is held within reserves. It's previously funded, and therefore, if utilized as a funding source for projects, it would not have a tax impact. And I will note that there is still $868,000 still allocated to the 2023 outdoor covered structures project. And that completes my update from yesterday. Thank you.
Just a question, Ms. Whiteway.
Yeah.
If council wants to have that 868,655 available in Strategic Initiatives Fund, do you require a motion for it to be designated to that?
I do, thank you. If we could get a motion to unfund, then we would be able to have that as available.
Okay. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I'd move that we, I guess the wording is unfund and add to the Council Strategic Initiatives Fund, please.
I'll call the question. I'm assuming you're ready. Sorry. If the e-scribe's not ready, I apologize. Just give it a minute here. So the motion is for committee to unfund the 2023 covered outdoor structures in the amount of 868,655. Is that right? Okay.
Councillor Bosch in favor.
Mayor Clayton in favor. And that carries unanimously. So thanks for the update. I will just go to my right and start with, I don't recall, apologies for who has answers that may be coming forward. Chief Glavin, did you have any? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Yes, there's a few here that we'll provide answers for. So first up here was, why do we have gender-specific washrooms? And that was with regard to the service center. Right now, it is a code requirement, so any that are non-gender specific would have to be over and above the code requirement for the project. So we could do some, but they would be above and beyond what we're required to do. In pathways and sidewalk condition, there was a question on what our condition index, and do we have one? We do have one. Our pathways are approximately, say the majority are in fair to good condition throughout the city, as well as our sidewalks, a majority are in fair to good condition. We don't have as significant a backlog in pathways and sidewalks as we do in roads. RCMP Parkade flooring, what are the safety hazards? Largely tripping hazards. So the RCMP is marking areas in orange so that people can visually more see them. We've had issues with tripping, falls, sprains in that area. And how do they intend to complete the flooring repairs? It is removing the concrete, not the rebar, although the rebar is exposed in a number of areas right now due to the deterioration in the concrete. And I believe that is what we have.
All right. Chief Lemieux.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There was a question with regards to the number FTEs and custodial at the Eastlink Center. So we have 13.5 FTEs allocated to that facility. That's to cover 17 hours of operations, 5 days a week and 14 hours on the weekend. So it's 113 hours per week. So that's 13.5 FTEs. I had a question about climbing wall and handhold type climbing equipment. So until we have more information about the design of the climbing wall, we don't know if the handholds will be compatible. Administration is tentatively scheduled to meet with the consultant next week, and administration will continue to work with the Climbing Association on this project. So we, between gift in kind and a little bit of cash, we will be able to support them, further support them to an estimated value of $29,000 to $30,000. There was a question about the Zamboni. How much do we need another Zamboni at Design Work? So we have a spare Zamboni at Design Work right now. It's the old style with the, it is becoming dated and certainly emits higher CO emissions, and their fleet department is saying that there are enough mechanical system issues with that equipment that it should be replaced in 2025. So that's not for 2024, that's for 2025. So those were the outstanding questions that I had on my list.
Thank you for that. I apologize, CFO Whiteway, you had some answers as well.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I would like to present a couple options with regards to Councillor Plott's question on how could we decrease roads by $2 million. So if I could just share my screen, I'll review a couple options for Council. Sorry, just bear with me one moment. I'll get this shared. Okay, great. Thank you. So currently we have...
Sorry, can you just start over, remind me what Councillor Platt's question was?
We were asked to return back with options for decreasing roads by $2 million. So in the proposed budget, there was $15.7 million covering roads. So there's multiple projects included. That's your current above. Within that, there was just over $1 million of capital tax allocated to roads. Administration worked through and has two options available for decreasing roads by $2 million. Now, as much of it was proposed to be funded by federal and provincial grant dollars, as well as some funds held within reserves. We had to predominantly take a look at where our capital tax was, as well as the reserve money. We did go through the capital plan to ensure that nothing else could be funded by CCBF or LGFF, and there is no projects that we are confident in would qualify for those funding sources. So what we've proposed in option 1 is to move the Old Highway 43 rehab program out 1 year. That's $1.75 million, as well as decrease the minor resurfacing, which is funded by capital tax, by $250,000. This achieves the request to decrease the road investment by $2 million and would save capital tax of $250,000. The second option that administration has looked at is to decrease a portion of the existing roads rehab budget by $350,000 of capital tax, as well as to decrease the amount within CCBF for the paved lanes and the old highway rehab program down to $1 million. And this would achieve the $13.7 million investment.
Okay. Open up the queue for questions. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Clayton. Is there a concern that I know that costs are very high right now, and if we hold it off a year, is there a danger it could even be higher?
Chief Glavin, you want to use your crystal ball and tell us your thoughts?
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I was going to borrow Councillor Thiessen's. It's really difficult to predict right now. On the concrete side, we've not really ever seen much of a decrease in costs. There's been just a steady increase over the last couple decades. Asphalt, a little bit more tied to the price of oil. Oil right now, I think, is in the 70s, 80s. It's really difficult to say geopolitically if there's an issue. It could really spike, but it's a guess. We're just assuming it's going to continue to be at this level.
Thank you.
Sorry, do you mind having your screen up while we have this conversation? I just know there's a couple questions. Thank you. Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. So I'm trying to understand how administration would interpret either one of these options. So if we remove funding from the old Highway 43 rehab project, that funding is specific. It has to go to the last section of the bypass, or can it go anywhere? And really what I'm asking is, if we pass one of these options, does that mean that we wouldn't finish the bypass in 2024?
Chief Glavin.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. So the section that we're doing between Ernie's and 102nd, we had budgeted for it last year, so the money is still in capital. This would not compromise completing that section of the road. That ended up being split into two because of the complexity, and we didn't want it to drag into the winter, although this would have been an ideal year for it because we probably could have actually finished it. But that is not in question. The Old Highway 43 money here, we're talking about some work we'd like to do on the west end of Old Highway 43, as our portion of 43 goes all the way out past the airport to where the new interchange is. And we haven't done any work out there, and there's some issues that we'd like to address.
So, and then I guess my follow-up question is, if council wanted to, I guess, is this Old Highway 43 rehab program, are we internally restricting it to the old bypass, or is it a provincial requirement it's spent on the old bypass?
Chief Glavin.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I believe it's an internal restriction for the old bypass. I'd defer to the CFO to confirm.
CFO Whiteway.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Correct. So when we received it was $20 million for taking over that road. There was a memorandum of understanding with the province that we would use that money for that piece of road.
But it's not a legal requirement.
It's not a legal requirement. That's right. And so we have restricted it, and we do use it for the Highway 43, but perhaps if another road was to be able to done with that money, that's an option as well.
So it would be breaking a promise, not a contract.
Well, and
okay.
My recollection of the conversation was that the money was to be absolutely used for roads. It was evaluated on what they thought their fair share of the upgrading of the road that they were turning over to the city. We said that it was a $70 million upgrade required over time on the bypass. They said, okay, here's 20 million bucks. So sure, roads, but there's still a shortfall in what was required. So yeah, that's my understanding, or that's my historical recollection. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. Still on the old bypass. In current and option 1, it says Old Highway 43 rehab 1.75 million. But in option 2, it says 1 million. How are we able to scale that back? Because to me, that Ernie's area is a priority, and I would love to see that done.
Chief Clevin.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. The Ernie's area is going to get done regardless of what we do with option 1 and 2 here. And on option 2, there should have been 750 put in 2025.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I think Chief Glavin just answered my question. That was something I was wondering what would happen with that other 750,000. So thanks for that. I had made a motion yesterday, so I'm not sure if you want me to continue on with that.
We will bring that motion back for sure, and we can do that now. Let me just get other questions out of the queue, and then I'll go back to you. Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you, Mayor Clayton. Just a request I'd have to the chair and Councillor Plott is if I'd find it helpful if our motion was either option 1 or 2 here instead of bringing back the actual.
100%.
I'm just curious, is there any room? Depending on where we end with this, I'm probably supportive of defunding some money from roads, but I'd like to have some further conversation, not necessarily today, about what we're prioritizing then with the money we're putting in. Is there any opportunity for council to have some input in terms of, I don't know if I support having the bypass work bumped, but I do support putting less money into roads. So I'm wondering how that conversation might happen.
Chief Glavin.
So I can give you just a very high-level triage of what we would do with the money. Ultimately, we will always prioritize arterial roads, followed by collectors and locals. So if any money we reduce, typically will be reduced from locals. And then as it progresses up, if there were more cut, then we look at collectors, and last we would look at arterials. That being said, there's always one-offs. If there was a critical issue on a local road, we deal with it as they came up. Same with the collector.
I have a question. So I'm just, sorry, I've just got my calculator out. So I'm thinking it's just tied to the shifting of projects, but what I don't understand is when you add up in the current option, 2024 and 2025, it comes to 30,650,000. If I look at option 2, it comes to 29,400,000. So so did we shuffle a project to another year? Because the other years are the same. So I'm just curious on that.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I think it just got lost in the shuffle here. We'll ensure that the proper number for 2025 gets put in.
Okay. I do have another question, though. I personally, just showing my cards, I'm leaning towards option 2. I think, but I did have a question. The capital tax of 700,000, is there any reason that couldn't come from future expenditure reserve? Is my first part of the question. And second part of the question, if at the end of budget deliberations today, other money frees up from LGFF or CCBF, we can adjust that at that point?
Thank you for the question. So the 700, just to speak to the 700 on minor resurfacing capital tax, we don't believe that would be qualifying for CCBF or LGFF.
Future expenditures, I was wondering.
Yeah, and sorry, I wanted to address the grant first, and I'll get to the reserve as well. Okay. So with that particular line item, it does, for their purposes, look more like maintenance than it does an actual capital road, just for that particular amount. So that's why we have that one to be municipally funded. In terms of the future expenditures reserve, yes, you could fund it from the future expenditures reserve. However, you would have to reduce the amount in 2025 from 750 on the old highway rehab down to, well, you'd have to eliminate that and fund this year. Reason being is we don't have sufficient unallocated otherwise, so you would be using the remainder of the Highway 43 money.
Perfect. And so if at the end of other discussions, we could reshift this again for appropriate funding sources? And if it had qualified for any other ones?
Correct.
Perfect. Okay, thanks. Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. Sorry if my coffee's kicking in slow, and I'm a little bit slow. I make sure I understand this. So, in terms of the old Highway 43 rehab program, all that's money, if I'm understanding correctly, that'll be spent west on the bypass, which means that it's a section of the road that gets really heavy truck traffic right now that eventually with the 43 connector will be removed from our roads. Am I understanding that correctly?
Chief Glavin.
Assuming if and when the Highway 43 connector gets built, it will offset some of the trucking that would be using that road. We will always have trucking that will come into Highway 43 via that road because it'll be the closest or the shortest route to whatever their destination is. But yes, there should be less trucks at some point.
And I guess just showing my cards, if we're going to delay road work, for me, that's a perfect place to delay it. The later we do work on that road, the closer that is to the 43X, the better in my mind. So showing my cards, I really like option 1 because for that reason.
Councillor Bosch.
Thank you. I guess my concern is for the minor resurfacing piece, 700,000 versus 450,000. How, in the expert opinion of yourselves, the resurfacing should make some of our roads last longer. So by cutting that, do we have any negative outcomes?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Yeah, ultimately, less is less. If we have less money for road resurfacing, we'll have less maintenance done on some roads, which will theoretically decrease their life. It's not a linear, if you do one thing, you're going to have this exact amount of degradation. It depends on the year, depends on the weather, depends on the traffic. But we do think that minor resurfacing program is having an impact in areas. As I said, I think in day one, we've been doing these types of patches for years, and we've seen some success with them, and that's why we proposed last year doing this larger scale resurfacing in areas that we're never otherwise, well, I shouldn't say never, we're just not going to get to for a long time. So there is benefit to it.
I'm absolutely in favor of that minor resurfacing, and that's where I'm having a difficult time between 1 and 2. I'm okay with moving Highway 43 rehab the west side, but in option 2, we still have that piece where in option 1 we don't, and resurfacing is then being reduced. So I guess I'll hear what my colleagues have to say, but moving 43 is not an issue for me, but the minor resurfacing, cutting that is a bit of a problem.
I'm just going to jump in the queue before I go to a couple, because I had a question on something similar. On Highway 43 rehab, Chief Glavin, I appreciate Councillor Bressie's comments in regards to it may be, not as necessary. My fear is that Highway 40X is 4 years away in a best case scenario. So tell me, what's the evaluation of that work that was going to be done there? If it wasn't done for 4 years or even a year, how quickly will the quality decrease based on the current traffic volumes?
Mayor Clayton, I know that if it, one of the reasons why we put that it could be pushed back a year is that we're not imminently worried about the road failing. We're not looking at a reconstruction of that area. I believe we're looking at an overlay. So right now, I don't know 4 years, but we're not worried about pushing out a year for sure.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Blackmore.
I'm thinking that if we push Highway 43 rehab out a year or 2 years, we could move it to future capital tax and move future expenditures reserve into minor resurfacing and the initial line 14 of capital tax. That's just a thought. I'm wondering if that works.
I got a nod.
Yeah.
Yep, you are correct.
So to me, that's an option that gives us some time to put money back into future expenditures reserves. And it accomplishes the goal of taking a couple $1 million out of capital tax today.
Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks. I was going to say something very similar to what Councillor Blackmore just said. I do want to thank you for option 2 in keeping that minor resurfacing at 700,000. I live in the Northeast, and there were 2 areas that I noticed were really getting beat up, and next thing you know, they're resurfaced, and I travel 96th a lot, and that was getting really beat up, and next thing you know, it's resurfaced. So the areas that I personally noticed that have been getting really worn down have been resurfaced, so I appreciate that and like that. So it's one area that in option 1 I don't want to see lost. So again, I'm liking option 2, and very similar to what Councillor Blackmore said with shuffling the capital tax and the old Highway 43 and saving us some money.
Thanks, Councillor Berg. Sorry to cut you off. I'm going to ask that maybe I could get some business arising and we'll debate over the options. Unless anybody in the queue has specific questions relating to an option. Your question is? Yeah. Okay, go for it, Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Chief Glavin, could you remind me, am I remembering right that there's some work in conjunction with on 102 Street planned for this upcoming season? Am I remembering that right?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I believe we do have some that we were looking to coordinate with Aquaterra. I'd have to confirm the scale.
And I'm just curious if either one of these, either one of these would impact that. For me, it's specifically 102 Street where it goes into Musk CP Park. That's a priority to me, and I'd hate to see that delayed if that's on the books, but I don't even know if it's on the books right now.
Chief Glavin?
I'd have to get back to you. At the end of the day, if we're going to partner with Aquaterra on something, we would prioritize to ensure we did that. So if it's part of that project, it wouldn't be delayed.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor O'Connor, is it business arising or you have a question? Okay, so can I just, I'll come back to you. Can I just get you to rescind your original motion? It wasn't postponed. Okay, we're good. Go ahead, Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, following what Councillor Blackmore brought up is moving, where would that show up in option 2? I'd like to move option 2. So where is the 1 million? It's taken out of the 24 online. Future expenditure? That's what you would like?
I'm actually looking at option 1. So if you take the first line of roads existing capital tax and convert that to future expenditures, take minor resurfacing and change that to future expenditures, and then take the old Highway 43 rehab program, moving it into the future under capital tax. And if that gives the opportunity to increase the amount of minor resurfacing back to 700, I'd be cool with that too.
Okay, so you're saying that
so let's just give her a minute to update and then we'll see if that.
Perfectly clear.
We need like that music that, was it? Jeopardy? No? Okay. All right. Come on.
What used to be there?
Option 3? Okay, so we're going to come back to roads, okay? We'll give you a few minutes. Is that all right?
Yeah.
We're good? We'll come back? Okay.
Except that instead of being capital tax on the first line, it should be future expenditures reserve.
So let's...
On line 14.
So how about, Councillor Blackmore, do you want to pretend there's nothing there? Make notes of what it is, and then pass your notes to the CFO. She'll create an option 3, and we'll come back to this.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. No. Councillor Plott, can I get you out of the queue, or did you have something else? You're good? So do any other chiefs have updates from questions that were proposed yesterday? Okay. So we are going to move on. We will come back to roads, don't worry, to page 30. And items that were flagged. The first one that was flagged was urban forest strategy. I am sure I flagged it myself. I've been a big advocate for this program from the beginning. I'm just curious, my question in making the decision on this total amount is for Chief Glavin. If this fund were to be cut in half for this year and 100,000 put to next year, would there be would it impact a specific project, or could we still see something significant, knowing that we already have $100,000 in tree replacement, which truly is for tree replacement, but with a sort of combined effort, could we still see some impact with $100,000? There's the first part. And the second part of my question is, in our community, I know that the forest industry has indicated that they are looking to implement some beautification sites. We know one has already come to fruition near Arbor Hills in celebration of International Paper's anniversary. We know that other forest industries are interested in that sort of program. Do you think that if this capital tax was decreased by $100,000, that there is opportunities of working with industry to supplement another $100,000? So what would it look like if it was $100,000? And is there opportunities to work with industry to get that replacement?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So if we reduce to $100,000, I believe would be a little bit less than what we did this year on the 100th Avenue corridor, which we were planning to do some work on the old bypass between 100th Avenue and 100th Street. So it would be less than this year, but similar if we just had 100,000. We are in active discussions with another company who will be able to share more on that shortly, that has a project in mind. This year we also had International Paper do their Grove on 108th and 132nd Avenue, and we do think there's more opportunity to have discussions for additional partnerships with industry.
Okay, so of the four main players, one's already done one, one's in discussion. There's two other opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay, so if somebody is interested, I would appreciate a motion to decrease the urban forest strategy to $100,000. Councilor Thiessen. Sorry, did somebody say something?
It was Councilor O'Toole, but I think we both agree.
Well, you're in the queue, so.
Yeah, I know. He's just a little slow.
Okay.
Yeah, so moved.
Councillor Plott, oh, you're right now. Okay, so that motion is in order to decrease the urban forest strategy phase 1D by $100,000 and put that $100,000 into 2025. Okay, Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you, Mayor Clayton. Yeah, I can't support that. For me, trees are the single most cost-effective investment we make in future quality of life in the city, and the best time to plant a tree is yesterday. The second best time is today. I'd rather plant today and not tomorrow, so I can't support this.
Okay. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks. The quote is, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So for me, I loved what we did this year. I'd hate to scale it back, and we would scale it back at 100. I could live with 150, but cutting it back 100 is just a little too deep for me.
Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Yeah, I'd love to see more trees going, and I was an advocate last term for trees, but I still want to remind us that we weren't planning $100,000 of trees for many, many years. Now we've got a line item moving forward for $100,000 for the rest of the budget. This would still put $200,000 in trees in our community 2 years in a row. So I'm fine with us moving that around and actually having more of an opportunity to work with industry to see if we can leverage better funding from that. I think if we go ahead and put the whole $200,000 in this year and put it into capital, I am worried we might lose that opportunity a bit. So I think us deferring $100,000 actually might get us more leverage on that second $100,000. So I'm fully in support of the motion.
Councillor Bosch.
Thank you. I will support this motion. Honestly, if we're talking with industry already and we have some positive discussions in behind, like it's coming either way. So why wouldn't you postpone it and take it away from our capital tax right now? The outcome is the same.
Councillor Blackmore.
I would like us to defer this motion to the in-camera section of the meeting.
Okay. We will defer this motion. And Councillor Thiessen, I'm thinking you were to close, or did you have a comment that, okay. Okay, next item that was flagged, fleet equipment, and I flagged that. Let me get there 1 second. Chief Glavin, I know that within Fleet that we do significant work on evaluating the state of vehicles and the lifespan of vehicles. And I know that vehicles and equipment continue to rise in cost. I just wanted to be assured that there are, with changes in contracts and different work that we do in our community, that there's no other opportunity to defer some of this spending.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So we've recently hired an asset manager for corporately, and I've already had them start digging into our fleet replacements and our practices around replacement versus extending the life and doing additional maintenance. Right now, I've had them look at some of the heavy equipment specifically because it's most expensive at the moment to replace and likely always will be. Right now, they're currently supportive of the current practice, but there are some opportunities with replacements to treat them differently from a warranty perspective that will likely allow us to increase the lifespan and hopefully decrease the overall cost of owning these assets. As of right now, they have not done a complete analysis of the entire fleet, but they are comfortable with the system of maintenance that we have in place. So we're not immediately recommending a change, but we are looking at some changes.
Okay. Thank you for that. Next item that was flagged, exterior signage. Did I flag that? I think so. City facilities. I had a question in regards if this was, and I can ask the CAO or Chief Glavin, whoever's prepared for that. There was a list of what this includes. If we were to reduce this amount in specific for City Hall, is there any maintenance dollars available or other funds available that we could just do a simple refresh on our pylon sign as opposed to significant work? Chief Lemieux?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So absolutely that is an option. So the amounts that are listed in the budget book for 2024 would have addressed the City Hall sign, and the other signage was for future years, so 140,000. But certainly we could do some refurbishing on the existing sign, which would be a lot cheaper.
And do you need a dollar amount for that? If council had an interest of just a refresh on City Hall sign, would you suggest we unfund this 140 in capital tax? Or tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's what I would suggest is we unfund it, and then we'll look at, because we don't know what the refurbishing would be. So certainly you could unfund this.
Okay. I would appreciate if one of my colleagues would make a motion to unfund exterior signage, city facilities, capital tax 140,000. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. So moved.
Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I think I'm supportive of this. I just part of my concern and my thoughts on it is this potential for a revenue piece, at least with advertising. If we were to do the full sign refurbishment, would that open the door for more revenue coming in through the signage at the city, or would it be so minimal that you know, we can defer and it's not gonna pad our bank accounts?
Chief Lemieux or CAO Burke?
I would share some thoughts on that, it would be minimal. And it's also just considering the location of the sign in front of City Hall. There are many assets we have around the community that we would look to selling to the market. City Hall would be one that I think would be a bit more cautious in what we would advertise in front of our main municipal building. So I'd say it would be limited in just my take on that.
Okay, no, thank you for that, CEO Burke. With that being said, I'm in full support of unfunding this. I think we can, as Chief Lemieux said, we can find a way to refurbish it for a lot cheaper without having to spend all the six figures that we got budgeted currently. So thank you.
Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, it's not appropriate on this topic, but I'd like to come back. And I have another one on the page before. Thank you.
Okay, my apologies. Councillor Plott. To close, or unless you had a question.
No, well, I can close in a minute if that's okay, but I did like to ask a couple questions for administration. Just moving forward, I believe when we asked this or when it got flagged, Chief Lemieux had mentioned the three line items for 24, 25, 26 were City Hall, our Activity Reception Center, and the library. I'm just wondering about the Montrose Cultural Center. Which year was that planned and proposed to put into this? Because for me, that's the one of the three that I would like to see done the most. I know that library's been asking for, the art gallery been asking for a signage there basically since we built that building. So I'm just wondering if you can update me on that, please.
My apologies.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm not sure whether that was 2025 or 2026, but if council wants us to make that a priority, we could make sure that that's in the 2025 budget.
And so for me, that'd be the priority. I think we built a new building and the activity reception center. It's not in a location that's going to sell a lot of advertising, doesn't have a lot of traffic. So I would have an appetite to see that moved up. I don't know if you need a formal motion today to do that, Mayor Clayton, or if that's just something administration can look at doing, because it is a 25-26 kind of a line item.
I got a nod that they're comfortable looking into it, and you'll see it in future budget.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And I don't need to close, Mayor Clayton.
Okay. I'll call the question on that. Councillor O'Connor?
In favor.
Councillor O'Connor votes in favor. Councillor Blackmore has left the chambers, so we are carried unanimously to 0. I am going to go back to an item that we may have missed that in regards to flagging. Councillor O'Connor wanted to flag wayfinding signage.
Yes, I'm not sure if this is the right area, but I am concerned with if I could put it on the camera over there so everybody can see the sign that I have, and it's in regards to safety in the parks. And I sent a text to everyone, and this is the sign. So can I?
You want to specifically at a budget deliberation talk about a sign, or can we have a broader
signs?
Okay, perfect.
So I don't know how much latitude is in the wayfinding.
Your concern is you'd like to see more signs like that, less signs like that? What is
No, the design of the sign is not safe.
Okay, so I think that's an operational conversation that we either could have offline or with at a standing committee. But
Okay.
I guess if I was you, the question would be, if you're concerned about safety and signage, if administration feels that there's enough of a budget there to see an increase in signage is what I think you're concerned is.
Yes, that's what I'm concerned about.
So Chief Glavin, can you address some wayfinding signage and what this this $100,000 will bring to the community in regards to increased and safety for signage with implementation of signage?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Yeah, essentially this is money that we will use to add to signing to areas that has no signing currently. So right now in the corridors of Muskwa, it is fairly well signed. We made that a priority over the last few years to direct people into the Muskwa Park corridor, let them know where to go, how far ahead, the next kind of meaningful area was, whether it's Ernie Radburn, South Bear Creek, or an avenue that they could get off on. This is just extending that and getting more people, whether it be visitors or residents, to know where to go.
Yep, okay, thank you very much. I think my question would be Chief Lemieux, and in regards to parks, so we'll be talking.
Chief Glavin does parks, but I think the content of the sign is your concern. There's a sign in particular that is confusing to patrons, so awesome. Okay, so we are moving, I don't see any, Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. While we're on this block, I don't know if we flagged community group funding, but I would like to have a discussion around that. Is that all right?
Okay, yep. Oh, it's on the top of 31. My apologies. Okay, so we'll go right to that. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll make a motion and then we can debate. I'd like to move that we bump that up to $350,000. It's a bump of $27,200. Following the community group funding that we had done, there were a number of groups that approached me and were saying that they're really struggling, and I get it, we all are. But one of the conversations that we had is some of them were scaling up out of COVID and they were only asking for what they needed and weren't getting the funding that they needed. And I believe every organization should be out there engaging with the community, doing their own fundraising. But for the small amount of $27,500, I think it would still help a lot of organizations as they too deal with with cost pressures and staffing pressures. But in reality, to our budget, that's only a drop in the bucket at 27.5.
I guess my question for clarification, Councillor Berg, would be this community group funding bucket of 322 approximately includes the item on page 44. So the Climbing Association, Center for Creative Arts, Nighthawk, Pickleball Club, and that's it. So by increasing that amount, you're giving them each a little bit more, or what was your
Well, I guess I was looking at more, and I apologize, I missed that connection.
It's okay.
For me, it was a lot of other groups. One was the boys choir, for example. Those types of organizations that come to us and we give them $5,000, $10,000, $15,000.
Okay, so that is in operational.
Okay.
Specifically boys choir. Can we just put that in the parking lot, and I'll come back to that?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Blackmore? Okay. All right, next on the flag list is lawn bowling. I think I might have flagged it, but somebody else. Councillor Bosch.
I did flag it. For me, that lawn bowling site at Muskwa it feels like a dead site. It's not working the way it is right now. I'm not really in favor of putting that back into lawn bowling. I don't think people are using it or have used it in a very, very long time. I would like to see options of it changing to something that more people would use. Whether it, it's I don't know what it could be used for. Maybe pickleball, maybe it could be something for the kids. But as it stands now, putting it into the same thing just because, you can, doesn't mean it's the right idea. So I'd like to unfund it and look into different ideas for that area.
Okay, so I got a few in the queue. I just wanted to ask one question of administration. You had mentioned, so the $240,000 that's there, funded through a grant. In addition to that, the project is larger and is already covered through another expenditure. So the total project is a $320,000 retrofit?
That is correct, Madam Chair. So the project is $320,000. However, we would repurpose the turf that was used at the Bear Creek Folk Festival.
Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Palat.
Sorry, thanks, Mayor Clayton. I agree with Councillor Bosch. I think that this is an area that would be something that I'd like to see us have more discussion about to see what we could do there. I also think there's been an opportunity. We've talked about covered outdoor structures. This might be a spot for that as well. So I would just ask if you could maybe make a friendly amendment to just slide it a year. I'd like to see the funding still be there for that at some point. I think we've talked about that for a while, about doing something with that space. So maybe just sliding it for a year and letting us have some community discussions and seeing what could come of that and let some engagement happen. Might be a good way to go, is to see something be allocated there for 25.
And so Councillor Bosch didn't make a motion, so if you wanted to go ahead and...
Okay, well, I'll make a motion that we just defer that money and slide it to 2025. My question on that, though, to administration is if we do that, that is funded from does that lose the funding, or do we have to find another project to find funding for to not lose that now?
Chief Whiteway.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Our preference is always to maximize those those grant funds each and every year. But the federal and provincial government do allow for carry forward periods. So it could be spent next year, for example, but we always do prefer to maximize it each and every year.
Okay, so hearing that, I would like to just I'll make a motion that we just slide that to 2025, and just hoping in 2024, that gives us a lot of time to do some community engagement and figure out what the best repurpose of that site is.
Okay. Councillor Blackmore.
Well, much to my astonishment, I have to disagree. The reason why is because we have a grant to do it. We have the turf already available. The reason that no one has used it for lawn bowling for the last 20 years is because you can't lawn bowl on that surface. It is so badly in disrepair that it doesn't serve the purpose for anything, not even bocce ball, because it's not good. The little pavilion that's there is in good shape, and by not having a decent turf surface there, the entire site has become very unused, which I think is a terrible misuse of resources. And so because we're using grant funding and because we already have the turf and it needs to go somewhere, and that's a really great location, I am in support of moving forward with this project in 2024. And I believe that we will see a lot of use on that site once it's fixed and repaired, from birthday parties to bocce to lawn bowling. I think it will be a very well-used site once it's attractive.
Councillor Thiessen.
Well, she had me follow Councillor Blackmore after she took about 95% of my points here. I know. Well, no, that's great. I still had questions. I thought I was going to be a 1 to 8, but it's nice to know you got a friend on this one here. Just a question for administration. So we already have the AstroTurf, which was graciously used at the Bear Creek Folk Festival last year. What was the cost? So of the 300, I guess I can do the math actually. Yeah, it's about 80 for that, and that's the full cost. But then the other cost here with the grant that we're funding, what is that to do? Is that just to remove the old turf and put on the new turf, or are there going to be any other improvements to the facility and building?
Chief Lemieux.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So there'll be more than just the turf. So certainly we'll replace the outdoor turf, but the base also has to be done because there's significant deterioration on the base. Also, we'll be redoing some fencing and some door hardware so that by having additional exits, we could actually increase the capacity of that space, especially when it's used for events serving alcohol. And certainly we do have a potential sponsor that's interested in sponsoring the site, but not in its existing state. So there are some advantages to proceeding with this, but certainly we'll follow direction.
Okay, great. And just one more question in regards to, I guess, the rental shack, I'll call it. When was the last time we did condition assessment on that building? And would there need to be any renovations or upgrades to that now or in the future?
Chief Glavin.
I can help Chief Glavin with that one. So our understanding is that the site, the shelter building is still in good shape, and the picnic tables and everything, all of that stuff is still in relatively good shape.
Awesome. Okay, so thank you very much for that, Chief Lemieux. Just speaking to this motion and using the last of my 5% of points here. This is a great community gathering space that is highly underutilized. And as Councillor Blackmore said, the reason why it's turned into a graveyard is because it looks like a graveyard. It's in disrepair. And when we were there with our doctors, you know, it was nice to see the bouncy castles there, and they really enjoyed the space. But I thought we only used about like 30% of the space, and if that lawn bowling area is open, we could open the door for our doctors to engage with their families, try a new sport of that lawn bowling. Maybe I could have brought my bocce balls and we could have had a little bocce ball matchup or a bunnock. There's lots of things that can happen there, and once that site is picked up and refurbished and fenced in, well, now we have a place where we can gather and collect revenue from through rentals and stuff like that. So to me, it seems like an all gain and a no loss on this one. It's all grant money, so it's not coming out of our pockets or our taxpayer dollars, and it's just going to go back into making Muskasippi a more vibrant place for our community to gather. So I would encourage council to, if you're not going to support this, maybe give it a double think, because the sooner we get that site up and running, the more revenue we can pull out of Muskasippi Park.
Councillor O'Connor.
Wow, that was a long 5 minutes. 5 points. Anyway, I was going to comment that as Councillor Bosch had mentioned that, you know, why does it have to be that? But I like the idea that Councillor Blackmore brought up is let's do that project. But I also like what Councillor Palat said, that maybe there should be an opportunity to put a cover over it so it have multi-use, especially during the festival. They have to put tents up for the food service for the festival. So I think there's some opportunity to get more rentals out. So I would be in support. Let's go ahead and do this, and I'd be in support of it. Thank you.
Councillor Bressie, and then I'm going to jump in the queue.
Well, I'll confess, 12 and a half years in this community now, I've never once set foot in the space. I've never once looked at the space and go, oh, gee, I sure wish I could hang out there, with the exception of the one event we hosted for doctors that I was out of town for. It's also as a guy that's hosted and organized a lot of community events and been with groups that have hosted a lot of community events. I've never once thought, I can't find a place for this event. I need that space, that space there. Pushing back on, one thing I really want to push back on is people saying, hey, it's grant funded, so we should spend the money anyways. This is not a grant that's attached to a specific project. This is literally the most flexible grant we get for a city that could be spent broadly for infrastructure. So if we're spending $250,000 here, it's not like we're saying, hey, here's $250,000 we're not going to get otherwise. That's $250,000 we could spend on roads. That's $250,000 we could spend on pedestrian links. I could be wrong, but I think that's $250,000 we could spend on other rec facilities such as our dome. So when we're spending grant money on this, that's $250,000 we're either not spending on other amenities, or $250,000 now we need to gather in capital tax to do other things. So please don't support this just because it's got a grant there. I've heard two uses for this. Number one is, hey, we need this place for various sporting events, for lawn bowling, bocce. Well, we spend a lot of time mowing actual real grass in the area that I've played bocce on many times with my kids. I'd way rather play bocce on the real grass we mow. For lawn bowling, I honestly don't understand the sport. Maybe they do need, maybe for lawn bowling to happen in the community, they need a space. But I don't think that you just build a rec facility and a sport like that happens spontaneously. I think my experience of seeing rec facilities and even building a few rec facilities across the province is, if you don't have a community behind it that's going to promote that sport, organize that sport, build that sport, it doesn't happen. I've never once had somebody in this community say, we really need lawn bowling. Help me get this place rehabbed so that I can build a lawn bowling league. So I don't think we need it for a sport reason. I think there is a good argument to be made about, hey, this would be a really good event space. There actually might be merit there. But if there is merit there, I want to see a business case. I need to see more information about what kind of revenue do we think we can event, what we can generate, what demand are we filling that we don't feel is currently being filled in our community. I've never seen that business case. We've never had a conversation with that council. So for me, this is $250,000 that could be repairing roads, could be building new pedestrian linkages, or could be saving capital tax. And we're putting it in just without a good plan or a good reason. So I'd really encourage council to support this motion. Let's put this back to 2025. I'm not saying don't do it, but let's make sure there's a good business case if we are going to do this.
Councillor Bosch?
Thank you. Well, Councillor Bressie pretty much said everything I was going to say. Thank you for that. The point is, it doesn't have to be lawn bowling with this grant. And in all honesty, when we hosted that function, the kids had nothing to do that were there. And a bouncy castle isn't going to cover it, and it costs money. So if you put something simple like a natural park for kids to climb on, and you have the tables there, and you bring in a barbecue, and you can rent out the facility, you'll get far more use out of that for a birthday party, child birthday party, or senior birthday party. You have a place where kids can actually do something and participate, you know, with their grandparents, if that's the concern. That we're taking something away from the older demographic. But as it stands now, I think it's useless, and we aren't renting out that facility.
Sorry, we're discussing and debating the motion, which is to move it to 25 or not.
That's right. But everybody was giving their reasons why. So,
I know, but I'm trying to speak.
So my point is, I'm going to vote in favor of this motion, to move it to 2025, to do something better with the area than what has been done with it.
Thank you. Councillor Blackmore.
Just one comment to make. If we choose not to do anything with the site, we need to tear it out, and that's going to cost the equivalent or more. So keep that in mind.
Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, back in the 1980s when we had Winterlude and things like that and festivals, this was a happening place. Weather deteriorated it, and it's been left and no council has wanted to support it, to fix it. I'm thinking if we repair it, they will come, and I'm okay to go to 2025 with this, but it's a big part of the community for a number of years, and then it just was a disrepair. So I'm willing to repair this I know in Winterlude we used it as a remote control car facility. We had like a track there, and in the winter or summertime it was used for lawn bowling. Thank you.
I had a question for administration. Chief Lemieux or Chief Glavin, one of you mentioned that there was private industry interested in supporting it, and I'm assuming that's in the state of a lawn bowling center. Can you tell me, have you had discussions in regards to what programming looks like if this were to get approved in 2024? Are we prepared to do programming? As a private user group going to do programming? What would that look like?
I can confirm that the space was used all summer for programming, so the summer programs make extensive use of that facility.
Sorry, lawn bowling program. Are we prepared to facilitate a lawn bowling league? Is there a user group looking to do a lawn bowling league?
So certainly Sports Development has been working with, I think it's called Alberta Bowls, which is a provincial organization that is very interested in working with us.
Okay. So I appreciate the motion. I can't support it because I think this needs to be done this year. I know that we've put a little bit of money in it over the past few years in regards to the facility, but that is a perfect location. It meets one of our goals with an inclusive and caring community of youth to seniors, because youth to seniors can actually participate in this facility if it was utilized correctly. And so I can envision a Friday night commercial league where you, as mentioned, that facility can be licensed. You can have people in the park every evening. You could have a ladies' league on one night. You could have a youth league in the day. You could do great things there. And adding another recreational aspect to our community just broadens our spectrum of offering. I think that's a huge win. Grant money, 100% agree, Councillor Bressie. Don't assume grant money is costing us nothing, because it could be put to roads. But I think that at the end of the day, to see something turn around relatively quickly in 2024 that services so many people and brings a new offering to our recreation menu, I think is a great win. When you drive by there, it's a gem of a piece. It's located well. It's right across from parking. And the facility, if you've been in there, is in great shape. And it could be the next big thing in our community for relatively a little amount of money. So I won't support the motion only because I think it needs to be done sooner than later. Councillor Berg, or Palat to close. Oh, sorry, Councillor Berg, do you have something else?
Yeah, I just actually wanted to add anecdotally, there is a group of, it's a prominent business here in town, and I know that they use the facility for team building, and they actually have a league of their own within their office, because I saw them walking by with the bocce balls, and so they still go down there and they use it, and the comment was, yeah, it's rough, but again, it's team building, and we want to use the facility. So they use it as is, but I know that they would value it far more if the investment was put into it. So that's just one example, and I'm sure that there are more if the facility was updated and upgraded.
Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I didn't think this would generate this much discussion, but I'm glad it did. And I'm glad we're kind of somewhat split on it. I think this is an area that I wish we talked more about. Last term we've had chats about it. I don't see us having a lot of issues with deferring this for a year. Even Chief Lemieux had mentioned it's getting well utilized. Everybody around here that's talked about it has kind of mentioned how well utilized. Could it be better utilized? Sure. But I don't see us taking a pause and doing more engagement and making sure that we're putting in something even better and bigger than what we're doing. This could come back next year with another capital ask above this amount. And I would probably be fine with that if it had a real good plan about what we're looking at doing. So for me, I just think deferring this for a year gives us a pause. I'm not saying not do it. I'm just saying let's pause it for a year. Let's get a little bit more conversation about it. Let's do some engagement on it. Let's make sure that lawn bowling is the exact right fit. And if it is the right fit, is it the whole surface, not the whole surface? Are we putting in a covered structure in this area? What does it look like? And I guess because we don't, from what I'm hearing, it's just about replacing with lawn bowling. To me, that doesn't quite cut it. I think there's more to this site than could be. I see this as a huge opportunity for us to be, like Councillor O'Toole mentioned, I think this could be repurposed to have a winter facility. We have a skating rink down there. It'd be nice to figure out how to use this as a winter facility, not just for lawn bowling. So I hope you can take a pause for a year and support this motion.
Okay, that's Councillor Plott's close. So vote in favor pauses it, vote against would keep it as is. The motion is defeated. So unless I see any other business arising, that will stay, and I'll move on to the next flagged item, which which is the sport tourism strategy. My understanding is that I flagged that. If you notice on page, the question for administration, currently on page, apologize, 1 second, 45, there's $100,000 capital tax put to sport tourism strategy. This would be to invest in a new actual strategy to help grow sport tourism as a significant economic, social, and cultural driver. I truly am an advocate for sport tourism. I think it's huge value. There's nothing better that balances the ebbs and flows in our community and hospitality in particular than sport tourism. However, we didn't fund a position. Our sport development wellness culture team, in my opinion, is doing an excellent job. We've attracted the Alberta Winter Games, the National Aboriginal Championships, the first community in Alberta to ever host them. We've attracted the Alberta Summer Olympics, Special Olympics rather, the National Wrestling Championship, and I think we're doing well. Do I think in time when we have the appropriate identified person to focus on a strategy that we need a new strategy? Yes. I just don't think we need the new strategy today. So I would hope that one of my colleagues would consider unfunding this. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I just had a question for administration. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I thought yesterday when we were going through this, administration recommending deferring this for a year because we weren't hiring that position.
Councillor, that is correct. We still need a motion.
No, I just want to clarify
that. Chief Lemieux?
Yes, you are correct. Administration is recommending defunding this at this time.
Okay, so I would just move that we defer this to the 2025. Leave the same line item there, hold it, and move it to 2025 then.
Perfect. A motion is in order. Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you. I was just in the queue to move your motion, but I agree. The only way that I disagreed was on the unfunding. So I'm happy that Councillor Platt is deferring to 2025 because I do see a value in the position that we didn't fund, and I do see value in the strategy going forward. So maybe those come hand in hand in future years. I just don't want to lose it on the page, so I can support this.
Seeing no one else in the queue, call the question. And that carries unanimously. We are now going to go back to roads. I'll turn it over to CFO Whiteway so she can show her screen for option 3. And I think Councillor Blackmore, when you're ready to make a motion once you see it, unless you had something to add, CFO Whiteway.
No, thank you, Mayor Clayton. Yeah, just if want to double check that we've captured the intention here appropriately. So based on what Councillor Blackmore had shared, we've updated to look like this. So it would be a capital tax savings of $600,000, achieves the $2 million reduction while holding the minor resurfacing at the originally proposed $700,000.
Councillor Blackmore.
I would move that we reduce road spending as per option 3.
Discussion or debate on option 3. Councillor Plott.
Helps if your mic's on. Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I just wanted to confirm that, and I'm fully in support of this motion, but looking to 2025, although we're moving $2 million out, did we just basically move $1.5 million back a year? So in essence, we haven't changed the actual allocated amount by as much as it looks like when we drop it by $2 million.
Can you show the original very top? So if you add those two together, it's $13,650. If you add the two together in option 3, where are we at? 30, we're 50.
31. Okay. So yeah, I'm totally in support of this motion. I think all we're actually doing is just pushing some of this back for a year and hearing that a lot of it's going to go to road rehab in an area that it might make more sense to push back. I'm fully in support of this motion.
Councillor Pressy.
Yeah, no, I can support this motion for now. It's especially because just given where provincial revenues have gone, I'm actually optimistic about LGFF going up in 2025, and there'll be opportunity to make up for that there. But something to keep my eyes on, just in terms of its roads, we've done a lot of work over the last 6 years to catch up on our road network, and it was at an unacceptable state, I think, 6-7 years ago, and I think we've got to a point where it's at an acceptable state. And I don't want to decline again. I don't need to keep on improving the overall quality of our network, but I don't want to decline again. My understanding is that the budget that was recommended to us was really just a flatline, pretty much status quo budget. And I'm okay underfunding that budget for a year in recognition of the tough decisions we've got to make, in recognition of some of the big capital asks that came to us that we're going to debate in a little bit. But for me, it's a 1 year thing of reducing it. I hope that council's ready, even if we don't see LGFF bump the way that I'm optimistic it will in 2025. The council's ready to do the hard work of making sure that we're funding our roads appropriately in the long term, so that the next council, the council after that, doesn't have to come to an unacceptably low quality road network. So support this, but caution about next year.
All right. Seeing no one else in the queue, I'll call the question. That carries unanimously. Now, I'm going to provide an opportunity for an in-camera conversation, and we're going to take a break. So I will suggest that we will be back at no later than 11:15. All right? Thank you. Yes, please. Councillor Bressie. All those in favor? Other than yourselves, gentlemen, everyone else is staying. Good morning and welcome back to day 3 of Budget 2024 deliberations. We are currently still have, I think, 4 flagged items left. We're on the Montrose Cultural Centre outdoor event structures, and it was Councillor Blackmore who flagged that one. I
Sorry.
led astray. It was Councillor Thiessen, but we don't have to fight.
No, we're not fighting. I just want to correct the record.
Okay. Anyways, go on.
Yeah, okay. I'll just tell her in private later. Thank you. So I did flag this item for outdoor event structures, and a couple things that I wanted to ask in regards to it. So part of this outdoor event structures budget of $1.962 million for 2025 is the paving of the gravel parking lot west of on the west side of the site. Now, I went back into my filing cabinet in the back and I pulled out this book, our Montrose from 2016, which intimates the whole site design layout and options that we could have in there. Now, part of that was I guess we can imagine the outdoor structures could fit inside there, but it also imagine on that west corner a commercial or residential building or a mixed-use building to be going up on that portion of the site. So my question is, of this paving, what portion of the budget is the paving of that parking lot? Because to me, it just seems like it's throwing good money out over bad, you know. Page 46.
Halfway down. In 2025, there is some capital, there's $1.962 million identified under capital tax, Montrose Cultural Centre outdoor event structures. And so to recall, to refresh people's memory, and I don't know if Councillor Plott was with us at last year's budget or not. I don't recall the timing. Yeah. So my apologies, but on that vein, I don't know if administration, if Chief Glavin would need a minute to look up that breakdown for that budget item. Chief Glavin. Because I feel like when we had the discussion, you led it initially.
Sorry, Mayor Clayton, I did discuss it with Chief McEachern in the break, and she might have some information.
31, you said? Thank you, Mayor. I do have the breakdown for each element of this, and to pave that parking lot is $1.3 million.
So that's most of the budget. So that leaves $600,000 for the covered outdoor structures and gazebo.
The breakdown is for the cost of the structures. The building the structures is $282,020, and then the additional $380,000 is for power to the site, power to structures, water sources, and sewer.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for that. So with this, I know it's labeled as cover outdoor event structures, but this seems like it's paving the parking lot budget. And I do also see some symmetry between some of Council's strategic initiatives that we did unfund with covered outdoor structures and the potential in here. I'm not going to make a motion to unfund it. I just wanted to ask the questions to get clarity so I could write it down in my book. But something that I think Council and administration should consider as the wisest use of our finances and our taxpayer dollars. If we ever do get a development on that west corner, that means we're going to have to jack up pretty much most of the concrete that we're spending $1.3 million on, when really the vision of our Montrose is to create a space where people can gather, which is what Mama Sepia Ota or Mama Way Concourse actually stands for, is the gathering place. I have my own vision for it. I know other councillors have their own vision for it, but I just hate to see us put $1.3 million into that, and I think we should have some discussions over the next year as to what that looks like and what this budget line looks like for 2025. So I do want to keep it in the budget funded because I think we have options to talk about, and come 2025 we can maybe pull it out or rearrange it in one way, shape, or form. But I just wanted to get those questions for clarity in and give administration and council a heads up as to why.
Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. I'm also intrigued to learn more about what the covered structures are there, because those might hit more the itch that I'm trying to hit with the potential $4 million covered structures we're talking about somewhere else. So I'd move that council direct administration to bring information about the Montrose Cultural Center outdoor event structures to the appropriate standing committee so that we can have more conversation about this.
Perfect. I think that motion's appropriate. I can tell you what initially the conversation was, but let's just get that done and move on. Call the question on that motion. That carries unanimously. Next item that was flagged by me in regards to the healthcare attraction and retention strategy. I just want to see a little bit. Give me a second. As we know that this was still a significant priority of council and of this region. We, in the past year, have put together a matrix in regards to identifying opportunities and work that is already taking place within traction and retention. I'm just not sure we need $100,000 put to this at this point. So looking for a further explanation. Chief McEachran.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, it was in choosing that dollar figure, we were looking to just have some flexibility because we were unsure of all of the elements that would go into this plan once it's developed, and we will have a better understanding of that. We are hoping by the end of the year, of this year, of 2023, that we would have more of a fulsome plan outline, but that was just to give us some flexibility around.
Can you tell me currently we do a physician's appreciation event as well as a family event. Where are they funded currently? Because this is new dollars.
That I will have to confirm for you.
Go ahead, Ms. Whiteway.
Thank you. We would be funding those through our operational budget in InvestGP.
Okay, so in my opinion, we're doing great work on this initiative. I don't think we need to earmark $100,000 for this. I'm hoping one of my colleagues would consider leaving $50,000 there. I think we are on the right path with the focus on retention. We are collaborating with AHS and the region on attraction. I just don't like earmarking what-if money for people. So I'll open it up to my councillor colleagues for conversation. Councillor Blackmore.
I have a question first, which is there are multiple organizations in the region who are working on attraction and retention of healthcare workers, and I'm not sure that there's really any effort to bring those various factions together into a more collaborative group, so that we're kind of all singing from the same page. So my question is that one of the considerations that you would be addressing with a strategy?
Well, that work is exactly already happening, but I'll get Chief McEachran to elaborate on it.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, through the mayor. Yes, we do work with a number of the groups already. There's lots of collaborative efforts going on. We share some of the the initiatives when we talk about visits, etc. We've shared all that information. We share information on some of the challenges, some of the opportunities for the physicians that are coming into the community. So we are working quite collaboratively with them.
Okay, because I sit on Peace Health Advisory Council, which is also working on healthcare attraction and retention. We do work with AHS, but the city has we've never had a contact with the city.
Actually, that's incorrect. A representative from that group was at a meeting that the city hosted with many other organizations.
And who was it?
We could talk about that offline.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I don't think it was anyone who's actually on that committee in that organization. In the meantime, I would move that we reduce the capital tax amount up to $50,000 to support healthcare attraction and retention.
Okay. That motion is in order. Looking for discussion or debate in that. Seeing no one in the queue, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Moving along on our flagged items under policing services, the detachment front counter, Councillor Thiessen. I apologize, Councillor Blackmore, you're still in the queue. Did you have something?
Oh, no.
Okay, I just want to make sure there wasn't something subsequent. Go ahead, Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. Just a question for Chief Lemieux on this detachment front counter. Is this a need to have or a nice to have? I did read in the thing that it's a bit higher for them to go from their side. But last time I was in there, and from recent pictures I saw, it doesn't look like there's really anything wrong with the space except for maybe the height. And I'm thinking to saw that down a bit. I don't know if that's 84,000, but is this a nice to have or a need to have?
Chief Lemieux.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. So from my perspective, I think this is something that we need at this time. So, I mean, most of you have probably been to a bar where you sit up on the tall stools. Working 6-7 hours a day over many, many years is starting to take its toll. I'm not sure why it was designed like that in the first place. Probably because we wanted to have the customers stand while they were being served, but it's having an impact on our staff. So this is not a nice to have. This is something that we need, in my opinion.
Okay, no, that's fair, and we're all entitled to our opinions. Do you think that we could do it for cheaper?
Chief Lemieux.
The number that we provided you is an estimate that we received from a very reputable renovation company. So could it be done for cheaper? Probably, but if we're going to do it right, this is because of the bulletproof glass and everything. It's expensive to renovate some of those spaces. So we believe the quote that we got is pretty accurate.
Just in regards to that bulletproof glass, couldn't we reuse it?
Chief Lemieux.
I believe the quote is that it will be reused, but there'll be some modifications required to it. Yeah, so we're not buying brand new. We're just reusing as much as we can.
Okay, thank you for that. I really respect Chief Lemieux's opinion, but in my opinion, is it's a nice to have right now, and I would make a motion that we unfund the detachment front counter and put it in place for 2026.
Okay, that motion is in order. Open it up for discussion or debate, or if you happen to have questions, that's okay as well. Recognizing Councillor Plot.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Just recently, I happened to be in the RCMP detachment to get a vulnerable record check to do some coaching. And so I took a picture of that counter and just sent it to you guys so you'll have it. I'm going to support Councillor Thiessen 100%. I've just went into a new bank that just renovated and the counter height's the exact same height. And when I was there, it looked like all of the staff had chairs that were able to move up and down, and I don't feel that there was any problems. There's also a short table on the one side. So as much as it might look like it's ergonomically challenging, I think buying 3 new chairs seems like a better idea than if that was needed, than ripping out an entire counter. It worked out to $3,200 afoot to rip this counter out. So I appreciate Chief Lemieux's comments, and that it's probably brought forward from their staff. But I do see this as more of a nice to have than a need to have. And I'm respectful that you're putting it again in the budget in a few years to be looked at again. So I'm fully supportive of this motion.
Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, I agree. Taking a look at the counter and having been there a couple of times recently, I think we should defer and move it further on. I think I agree with the ideas. Nice to have, but not right now.
Okay, seeing no one else in the queue, I'm going to call the question. And that carries 7-2. Moving on to the next flagged item in policing services. Under enforcement services, enforcement fleet vehicles. Councillor Bosch.
Thank you. I had flagged this because I'm curious if we're a little bit premature with how things may potentially change here in the new year. Just having conversations with others. Of course, it's nice to have, but I'm not sure we're at the position of making sure that it will flow in with the new process that Chief Lacusta will have starting January. I already see that there is other vehicles in the budget for the police service. So I don't know if now is the time, maybe if they need it later, and we do have the grant funding to look into in the future, and potentially not capital tax. I would prefer that.
Chief Lemieux.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I did get some information from Chief Lacusta on this. So there is a difference between enforcement services and police vehicles. So what Chief Lacusta has indicated is the Grande Prairie Police Service vehicles cannot be used by enforcement services. Peace officers are restricted by the Peace Officer Act to very particular markings and colors on their vehicles. This would disqualify them from using a Grande Prairie Police Service vehicle. So the vehicles will be different. Also, we have beefed up our resources to have a full-time traffic safety unit, and part of that will allow us to meet our targets in terms of court revenue. If we're lacking the vehicles, then obviously we'll have less people actively working on that traffic unit. That was the purpose of these 2 additional vehicles.
Go for it.
So my question would be then, why can't we get these 2 new vehicles if enforcement is going under the entire new police system? Why can't we put that cost into the grant funding? All we're doing is
funding is what you're suggesting.
So basically, we're switching it a couple of months into 2024, and use that money if it's going to be used for essentially the police force anyway.
Yeah,
Chief Lemieux.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the building of our traffic unit and enforcement services isn't really part of the transition. It's a decision that Council made last year. So that really wouldn't qualify for the transition funding.
Okay. Well, I just seem to think it's premature. I don't know what my colleagues think, but I'm interested.
Okay. Councillor Blackmore.
Chief Lemieux, do you have any idea how long it takes to get a police car delivered into Grande Prairie after you've ordered it?
Chief Lemieux?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure what the situation is right now. I know that it was several months throughout the COVID and post-COVID supply chain issues. I'll try and get an answer for you on that right now.
Chief Evan may have something to add.
I'd be astonished if it was less than 6 months.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I believe last I heard 8 or more months was what we were expecting, but I'll get confirmation from our fleet manager.
Chief Blackmore, was that it? Or sorry, Councillor Blackmore, was that it?
It's nice to know I'm suddenly earning more money.
There's a bunch of chiefs.
Yeah, I just think that this is not the time to be moving money out of this line item. There's a lot of moving parts involved in getting a new vehicle of any kind, let alone a specialized vehicle. And I don't think we need to hamstring the process.
Councillor O'Toole.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Clayton. I would strongly suggest that we fund this to its entirety at this time with the police service. It's part of a plan, and if we start making changes now, it's just going to cause some concerns later. So please support this.
Chief Glavin had something to add.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. 9 to 12 months is the current estimate.
There is no motion, so I will move on. So I'm going to go back under, on the list, you'll see on page 31, if I recall correctly. No, at the top of page 30, we had postponed discussion and deliberation on the urban forest strategy. So I was looking to see if there's any business arising from that conversation, considering the new information. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I would just move that we split the funding of 200,000 for 100,000 being in 2024 and 100,000 being in 2025.
Thank you.
For the urban forest strategy.
So on page 30, second item from the top. I will support that motion. I believe that there are opportunities for us to collaborate with industry. Our forest industry is a prominent, proud supporter of our community. They continue to want to work on various opportunities. I believe that for us putting $100,000 into this, we will see new trees added on top of our tree replacement program, which also costs us $100,000. I'm fully, completely behind this strategy as a whole. I just think that there are opportunities for us to do this over multiple years, to know that if we were to add as much trees, or as many trees rather, that we added this year for approximately the same amount, we'd make a significant difference in our community for another $100,000. So to phase it over 2 years, I think is a great opportunity. It also leaves administration the opportunity to go work with industry to see if they in turn are willing to be a partner in future expansion of our urban forest strategy. So I will support the motion. Councillor Bressie.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, if this is all the money we're going to spend this term on it, then yeah, I've got no problems with phasing it. For me personally, I'd like to spend a lot more money than $200,000 on this urban forest strategy. And so that's why I oppose this. Not because I'm opposed to phasing, but because I think we should be talking next year about putting another $200,000 in.
Seeing no one else in the queue, I'll call the question.
Bressie opposed.
Councillor O'Connor. That carries 6-3. All right, so moving on, I'm going to turn it over to CFO Whiteway, and then we will move into our 4 items that were brought forward for budget deliberation council considerations.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. If I could share my screen, please. It's not in the right spot. Pardon me. Just one moment. I'm not having the greatest luck with this screen sharing at the moment.
That's all right.
I'm just going to do this. Okay, so there was a number of capital budget referrals throughout the year. The community group capital, we've discussed multiple times, so this one has been included and is in the capital plan within your budget books. The engineering study as well, this was a referral to budget, but was also included within your budget package. The remaining 4, the rising above request of $333,000, the cricket practice pitch fencing for $6,000, Maskwa Medical Center request for $500, and then we do want just a revisit on the recreation facility to confirm the total capital to be approved by council. So yesterday, the operating component was approved. We do just want the confirmation on the total dollar amount of capital at $10 million.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for the introduction. So the 4 items flagged as mentioned, rising above, cricket practice pitch fencing, Maskwa Medical Center, and recreation facility. We are going to start with Maskwa Medical Center as being an item that was flagged, and I'll go to Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. I would move that we allocate $500,000 to the Maskwa Medical Center from Council Strategic Initiative funds. I think we took the $500,000 of those funds when we chose not to do covered structures. I think this is a great use of it moving forward for our community, so I hope we can all support it.
Perfect. Opportunity for discussion or debate on that motion. Councillor Thiessen.
Geez, yeah, I fully support it. I was just in the queue for other items, but no, this, as Councillor Platt said, this is going to go a long way, and hopefully it'll go even farther to creating the Maskwa Medical Center in our community, which will provide people with invaluable service and connections to specialists in their operating model. So I encourage the group, all the best luck with finding your funding partners at the higher levels of government as well, and I don't mind pitching this in this, as Councillor Platt said, it's a great use of our strategic initiatives fund.
Just going to jump in the queue. I too will support it. I believe that as a regional approach, I know the Maskwa community-led board of stakeholders will be going to the County of Grande Prairie for the same ask, as well as to the MD of Greenview. This regional asset in healthcare is really representative of the innovative and entrepreneurial thinking that our region is famous for. So I know that the group is very passionate. This region is very passionate about the future of healthcare, and so adding an amenity such as this will be a great opportunity. I look forward to conversations with our municipal partners and Maskwa as we see this project continue down the road, so I will support it. I see no one else in the queue. Are you good to do you, okay, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, I'm sure other members of council want to make other motions here, but I'm going to go with one right close to my heart, and I would move that we approve the $333,000 ask from Rising Above to create extra shelter spaces within their programming. Just to speak to this, the work of Rising Above is fairly incredible. They have a high rate of success, a low rate of recidivism, and they're connecting people to the highest aspects of themselves, not just to overcome addictions and their cycles of defeat, but to build them up with hope and strength. And this is a consolidation of a lot of their housing opportunities, and it's close by where their care campus is there. So I would encourage council. I don't think we're going to find too many detractors to support this motion.
Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Just a couple questions for administration. I guess one, would the funding source be capital tax on this?
Chief Whiteway.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I suppose that you could fund via capital tax, or there is Council Strategic Initiatives Fund available for this.
Okay. And my next question is, if I understand correctly, we own the land and the building that's there, and this would be an additional to that land?
Chief Whiteway. Chief Lemieux. Actually, I can turn it to our CAO.
That is correct. We currently provide the building and ongoing maintenance for the current facility to the tune of, I believe it's $36,000 a year in maintenance. Plus, there was the recent addition of the replacement of the roof. We are going through a process to negotiate a land lease for the potential new site of this building, and that is ongoing.
So, last question about Mayor Clayton. Yeah. Just wondering if there was an opportunity to say the funding comes with, for $1 more, this piece of land and building is theirs. Is that an option for us to do, or?
I think that's probably better served in an in-camera discussion. I see where you're headed. I don't have the information at this point. It is a contractual agreement that we have in regards to the land and building. Happy to have some of those conversations if you want to make a motion to go in camera.
I guess lastly, if we didn't do that today, I still want the project to go ahead. I'm just wondering if that needs to happen now, and if that could be brought into a later council committee of the whole for a discussion that we could go in camera then.
Sure, yeah,
rather
I
than
think
making a reaction on the fly. Just for me, I think it'd be great to have this asset move over to Rising Above and for them to take responsibility. I realize it comes with some risk for them on maintenance, but it also comes with the ability for them to leverage it and do other future projects and have that as an asset on their books. So that's my intent, is to get it to that. But for today, I'd be happy to support the motion if we could just have a conversation about that at a later time.
So if the motion could, if you convince your colleague, have pending further discussions added to the motion, that would be one way, but up to the mover of the
You
motion.
accept a friendly amendment on that, Councillor Thiessen?
You know what? Sometimes it's about having the cash in your pocket versus the potential that the cash might come. So I think I'm okay with the motion as it stands. If other members of council want to discuss and debate the merits of holding on to our cash till later and then having discussion with the cash in, I think we can do the cash and have the discussion later too. And I think we'll probably open the door for further discussions with Rising Above, because we also don't know, even though that gives them benefits to be able to leverage their land into other builds, it also comes with some risks, where property taxes and other stuff has in there. And so I think we put the cash in place now and enable them to start to build and to fundraise, which they're so good at, and then we can have that discussion at a later time.
Councillor Bressy, and then I'll jump in the queue.
Great, thank you. Yeah, this is an organization that's been incredibly good faith dealings with the city before. They've always been very keen to make sure that whatever they do works for us, not just for them. So I don't think we need to. I know it's not the intent, Councillor Palat, but it feels a little bit like holding the money hostage if we add to this motion. I think that no matter what, I'm going to want to fund them this amount, regardless how those other conversations go, although still very much open those conversations. So I think we should just commit to this, especially because they're talking to other partners. I don't want us to say pending further discussions and other partners say, well, pending city and all of that. I think be really firm in, we're going to commit this money so that they've got a firmer ask with other people in the region.
I'm just going to jump in the queue. I just want to remind council that if they were to use the asset in leveraging for borrowing money, having the lease for that building also qualifies as an opportunity for leveraging. They don't have to own the building in order to use that asset. I'm also a little concerned about, what the land relationship looks like with the high school, given recent conversations we've had with the school board. So Rising Above is an excellent institution. They do incredible work in our community and absolutely is a needed service. I'm a little concerned about the timing. I just wanted to be clear so that to confirm that Councillor Thiessen's motion, it does indicate that it's to be funded from capital tax, and that was your intent. I had a question for Ms. Whiteway. Do you happen to have at your disposal the current balance of Council's Strategic Initiative Fund, knowing that $500,000 was just funded to Maskwa?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So there's approximately 2.2 as a result of the other decisions that were made. So reduce that by the 500,000, so there's around 1.7 million remaining.
Yeah. So to that point, my preference, and I would hope one of my colleagues would make an amendment, move an amendment that the funding source be moved to Council Strategic Initiatives Priorities. I think that that's a suitable use of what we've identified in other priorities and better use than capital tax, in my opinion. But I'll leave that for conversation. Councillor Blackmore.
Can I come back with a follow-up motion once we get this business off the table? Sure. I think that would be the best.
Okay. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, I'd like to move that the source be the
Council Strategic Initiatives.
Council Strategic Initiatives Fund instead of capital tax.
Okay, so that is an amendment to the existing motion. Discussion or debate on that amendment? Any concerns from the CFO? Okay, I got a nod. No, we're fine. So seeing no one in that, I'll call the question on that amendment. And that is carried 8-1. So now a motion, discussion or debate on the motion as amended. Seeing none, I'll call the question. Councillor O'Toole, how do you vote? There we go. We are unanimous. All right, Councillor Blackmore, recognizing Councillor Blackmore for subsequent business.
I move that we refer the matter of ownership of the land and building of Rising Above to a future council committee of the whole.
That motion is in order. Seeing no one in the queue for discussion or debate, we'll call the question. My apologies to the scribe for moving so quickly, and that carries unanimously. Moving on to two more items left. Cricket, Councillor Thiessen, or the covered turf.
Oh, I've got to save the best for last. So I'd move that we fund the movement of the cricket pitch for $6,000 from capital tax.
Right. So I just want to be. A question for the CFO is that your recommended funding stream?
My apologies, Mayor Clayton. I was doing something else. What was the funding stream?
The 6,000 capital tax for the 6,000
I
option
agree.
one
Yes.
that's presented. Perfect. All right. Seeing no discussion or debate in that, I'll call the question. And that carries unanimously. Moving on, Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I'd move that council add $10 million for a potential indoor recreation facility reflected as unfunded in our budget. For me, I think this should hold a line in our budget so that it's clear to us that this priority we're still moving forward with and potentially doing it. But right now, I think it's too early to assign budget source. I think by the time we come to make a decision, we'll know where LGFF has fallen out. So I think there might be room in LGFF to potentially fund part of it. So we'll probably have to debenture some, but there might be room elsewhere. So I don't want to attach funding source to it right now, but I think it should appear as unfunded in our budget.
I know this before I recognize other councillors in the queue. The CFO had a comment.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So perhaps just for clarity, if we do refer to the request for operations that was approved yesterday, that would 100% debt fund the project. So if it is council's intention not to completely debt fund the project and wait and look at different grants and fund it that way, it would lower the operational impacts.
Councillor Bressie.
Sorry, yeah, no, good point, fine. Yeah, then if the chair will allow, I'll change that to debenture. And just to be clear, I know that council needs to pass a bylaw, have more conversation about borrowing. So I don't know if borrowing is actually the right impact, but happy to take the advice of the CFO for that reflected in the budget for now.
Okay. We have an opportunity for that there you go. It's already been corrected. It's in your e-scribe. The motion as stands. Committee amend the capital budget in the amount of $10 million for a recreation facility to be funded from debenture. Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. Originally, I got in here to say no, Councillor Bressie. We already talked about that yesterday, and we got it debt funded. But Councillor Bressie does bring up a good point, and something I think, and I just wanted to get in the queue to talk about this. When he said LGFF funding, I'd point that we also approved the Avondale Road Access and Servicing Study in this budget as well. And I know that when we built Charles Spencer School and the CKC, for the first year and a half there, we didn't really take into consideration the volumes of traffic and the needs of the widths of the road or how many lanes are there. And we created actually quite a bottleneck where at times, like, it took sometimes parents 40 minutes just to get out of that parking lot. And luckily we've rectified that now. But with Councillor Bressie saying LGFF and how we can do there, perhaps that's something that we can consider as the dome comes into creation so we don't run into those problems going forward in the future. But fully support the motion, debenture as presented.
Councillor Bosch.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to get this thing done and up and ready to go. My question is, if LGFF comes in and we pay out a great amount on this loan, is there any penalties towards us?
Ms. Whiteway.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Okay. Basically, if we do get grant funding or of some sort and want to pay this this debt down or this loan down, is there a significant penalty?
Ms. Whiteway.
Okay, thank you for the question. So that's the answer would be it depends. So it depends how we would structure the initial debt, who we are borrowing from, things like that. Typically, you will not qualify for a grant on a past project. What's done is done. They want to fund future projects. So I suppose you can't go back and repay debt using grant money.
So LGFF, how would we use that?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So currently you've already maximized your LGFF within the proposed capital plan. So if you were to use it, you would have to use it now at the time that you're approving the project.
Okay.
I'm just going to jump in the queue. I think this project will be a significant asset and amenity added to our community. There's still just a few things that are unknown for me, and so the decision today is a little concerning. I think it's a smidge premature. I know through our intermunicipal collaboration committee, there are still discussions with ourselves in the county in regards to usage at the crosslink. I know administration mentioned yesterday that administration from the crosslink recognize that there may not be additional space there, but my understanding is that political pressures with our municipal partners and their intent is to make sure there is space at the crosslink. And so, and we know history shows us that if we finance a recreation facility and go to our partners after the fact, you're not getting any support. And so I know that some of my colleagues will say we were never getting the support anyways, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think our municipal partners have been very forthcoming in their intent to be collaborative in the most recent years. And I think that some of these conversations need to be finalized in regards to utilization of existing facilities and collaborative relationships for the value of recreation for the region prior to saying we're taking on all this debt. So I support the initiative, support the venue, think that it's a great asset. It's a little bit premature, and I understand we're in budget, so the decision is probably best made today. Recognizing Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I agree with you, and I've lived that history. But this is an investment that I'm willing to make for our community. We've lost a lot of field sports, especially in the wintertime, and access for all ages to have that type of recreational fun. Sometimes what I hear from our locals is that the Crosslink Sports Center is maybe a bit too far. What I'm looking for them to travel, especially for people that ironically are closest to it in our city, which is on the east side of town. Some of them only have one car, and some of them are taking transit all the time or walking to their destination. So this is a great amenity for that neighborhood. I think we could look at it like it's going to cause roadblocks potentially, or we could look at it as a chip. We understand. Councillor Plott's always saying we have a need for more court sports and court sport facilities around our community. Maybe that's an opportunity for us to continue dialogue with the county and our partners to maybe encourage them to fill the gaps as we fill our gaps, and we do this together. We might be finding this all together on our own, and they might be finding that all together on their own, but we have those conversations and we're at the table all the time with them. So I think we can leverage a facility like this into investment from the county for everybody in the region. So to me, I don't have any concern about it.
Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Just a question for administration on to Councillor or to Mayor Clayton's comments. What's kind of the drop dead date if we actually want to see a facility built next year? Like when do we have to have a go, no go to send out RFPs, everything else to actually have a facility that's up and operational for October 1 next year, so we don't miss another winter season, September 1 actually, don't start missing another season of turning away kids in soccer?
Chief Lemieux.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it depends very much on the type of facility. Certainly a dome would be quicker to put up, and if the community wants something different, it all depends on what type of facility. Timelines are tight if we were to build a dome next summer, but at this point it's probably still doable, but the timelines are very tight.
And I appreciate that, and that's my concern on timelines. I remember last term getting pickleball stuck for years trying to get it through the Joint Rec Committee and who's going to fund it and how it's going to get looked. And so in the meantime, on a political debate back and forth with our colleagues in the county, not saying anybody did anything wrong, but what happened was a gap of 2 years for a sport that we see the growth and how much it's grown beyond what I thought it was going to be with pickleball. I have a very confident feeling when we build this building and it's going to be very full right from the get-go. So as much as I'd love to see us work with our county colleagues and figure that out, I don't think we have the time. I just don't think those conversations are going to happen quick enough. And I really hope if we choose to fund this, that our colleagues from the county will see that we needed to make a decision today, and maybe it will be retroactive, or maybe to Councillor Thiessen's point, we talk about potentially their building being repurposed in some format. That's up to them 100%, obviously. But I just really worry if we do not fund this and move ahead with it today, we don't see a building built again in 2024, and we push this to 2025. And we're always worried about costs going up and escalating and other things. I really don't think we should be waiting on this. So I really hope we support the motion today.
Just a couple clarification points. The pickleball holdup at Grande Prairie Regional Rec Committee had members other than just the county, and members that really didn't have the capacity for any financial contribution in that conversation, and was really the first facility that went through that matrix of what was established in criteria in regional rec. So a little bit different. I appreciate your comments, though. I do recognize the fact that the next intermunicipal collaboration committee is December 8th, and the item on the agenda is cross-link usage. So, and so a question for Chief Lemieux, if approved today, when would you be ordering a dome?
I believe that the next step is to have our community consultation. We very quickly after that will bring back a report to council indicating what we've heard from the community, and then that decision can be made at that time.
Okay. So my preference would be to postpone this decision till after December 8th, but I know, and that is not to speak against the facility. I agree, the facility will be utilized. The facility will be a great addition to our recreational amenities. It's the timing of the conversation for a collaborative approach. Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. My preference would be to see the motion go forward today. We often put things in budget that never, in fact, come to fruition. We're not signing this document with blood. That's always open to change. But I do have a concern with using political influence at the Crosslink Centre to open it up for soccer, because that means to me that if they currently don't have room for soccer, they're displacing some other group of people. And I just don't see that as being any kind of smooth path forward into the future. So I would be fully supportive of making this motion today, knowing that if there was a significant change, we can certainly come back and re-look at this. And in fact, we don't pass this budget in its final iteration until the new year.
Councillor O'Connor.
I echo those comments. I'd like to see it go through today, and whatever happens that with our collaborators in the county, I don't think they will be offended. I think it's important that we go ahead and we build this project, and we start now.
And to confirm, it's not that they'll be offended. It just history shows that they're not going to fund when you're willing to. All right, I see no one else. Sorry, go ahead to close, Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you, Mayor Clayton. I definitely hear your concerns, and also I've been very on the record. I still don't know how I feel about this. Not because I disagree we need a facility. I don't like the path we're going. In fact, if we had to vote today, I'd probably be a no if I had to vote today, but I don't know where my vote will be. That being said, we still are having very good faith conversations with the community, and I think this likely is going to get funded by council. If it's likely to get funded by us, then it should be reflected in our operating budget. It should be reflected in the tax increase that we're going to be communicating to residents starting today, and therefore I think that this does need to be reflected in our budget. I also point out that for me, if we pass this motion and we get down the path and we decide, hey, actually it would be better for us to work with our partners to invest money in the Crosslink, this money could be redeployed there. I'm also skeptical that we're actually going to do this for $10 million when you look at road, when you look at servicing, when you look at parking lots. And so I think that even with this $10 million, there probably is more money we need to find, which hopefully will come from regional partners. And so for all those reasons, I'd encourage council to pass this for today.
That's Councillor Bressy's closed, and then I need a minute following that. Call the question. That carries unanimously. Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. As it's been brought up that, we've talked about, there's been conversations, is Swan City FC going to put money in this? So I guess my motion will be that our administration works with Swan City FC, the football clubs in town, all the potential user groups to find funding streams for the facility. My hope with this is that we're building a dome, but the nets, the bleachers, and batting cages, and all the other things that go in this building are bought by the user groups. I think that's a great use for the user groups. I've talked to a few of them personally, and I think that's not going to be a hard sell to them because they want to have the product that they want to have. They want to have the batting cage they want, not necessarily the one we want to supply. So I think if our administration could work with these user groups, I think there's money there and that we can leverage that money as well. I wouldn't be surprised if we can find the millions of dollars it'll take to renovate the inside of the facility doing that. So that would be my motion for today.
I just wonder if the wording is better on identifying financial support rather than funding streams.
Sorry, yeah, you're correct. I'm still in budget mind instead of thinking about user groups here.
Okay. Councillor Bressy.
Great, thank you, Mayor Clinton. Yeah, I really appreciate this. I know something that's frustrating to me is talking to colleagues across the province who are trying to get arenas or pools or fields built, and they're talking about all the grants that their community is going after that aren't LGFF and Canadian Community Building Futures, whatever the federal one is, that aren't grants by right. And I think for me, we really have just been looking at this with straight municipal money when I know there's other opportunities out there. So really appreciate this motion.
Councillor O'Toole.
Yeah, thank you very much for that motion. I know that they've come to council 3 times and presented, and each time they said they are looking to support this financially as well. So thank you.
Councillor Bosch.
Thank you. I think we also need to remember that sponsorships from industry and community leaders are a big path forward in a structure like this. People want to get their name on something that promotes health and wellness in our community and a great positive quality of life. So I think there's more financial positivity through sponsorships coming our way too.
All right. Thanks for the motion, Councillor Plott, and the comments, Council. Call the question. And that carries unanimously. I'm not sure if for a question for Chief Lemieux, I'm quite interested to see if the facility came in at $10 million. Maybe it's a better question for the CFO, what the implications would be through an ICF renegotiation. So at some point in a report, if you could include that information for me, as if the asset was added based on it being $10 million, what it would look like in a renegotiation through ICF. Thank you. We have one item left. Councillor Berg wanted to revisit a conversation that had been under operational budgeting. So I'm going to go back to Councillor Berg. We're going to shift back to operations, and Councillor Berg would like to have a conversation around the overall amount of community group funding.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clayton. Exactly, and I'm trying to figure out which umbrella that might be. But when we do our allocations for community groups, again, it's adequate, it's fair. And I believe every community group should be out there engaging the public and doing their own fundraising. But with that, I also know that there's a lot of groups that are struggling, especially post-COVID. And so I would still like to see us allocate a slight raise for that pocket or that bucket of money that goes towards community groups. And so the number that I'd thrown out was $27,500. Again, it's a small drop in the bucket. But I know to a lot of community groups, that would make a difference. Any type of difference would certainly help them out. So again, I'm not sure what bucket of money that falls under our operations, but
so a couple questions for the CFO. Can you identify where, just so council can get there in their package, community group funding is in the operating budget?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So it's within sports development, wellness, and culture. So it's within their expenditure line. It's not separated out. So if you wanted what we currently, I just need a moment to look up the total that we're currently funding for community groups.
And a question for Chief Lemieux in the meantime that he may have at his fingertips. Can you remind me, there had been previously funding identified for community groups in emergency type situations when they couldn't make their payroll coming out of COVID, utility bills, etc. Is there any of that money left? Is that still a program?
I do know that we ask community groups to come and ask when they need that money, but I'll ask my staff if there's an actual fund for that or how that's funded.
And maybe the CFO can find that out as well. Councillor O'Toole.
I'm just wondering, Councillor Berg, what your goal is if we gave them $28,000. Would it be spread equally amongst all the groups?
Well,
or would it be you have some in mind that may want a little bit more of a chunk?
Well, I actually have no opposition to the current program where community groups apply for funding and our team allocates that funding. I just want to give them a little bit more elbow room in how they spread that money out. So it's not that I'm looking for anything specific. It's just when I saw the allocations and I saw that the requests were fair, but we were awfully shy with a handful of them and said no to a couple as well.
Thank you.
CFO Whiteway.
Sorry, my apologies. I thought somebody was sending me the number, but I do want to comment though on the application process. So with an additional 28,000 added, we would need some clarity on what we would do is we would normally open up the whole entire application process then and ask community groups to apply. So we do that every 2 years. So that was done, I believe this summer was our last one. So if 28,000 is added, we would then have to go back out, ask everybody that wants to apply, and then come back to council with the recommendations on how to divide up that 28,000.
And I don't mind that. Again, one of the things that as these groups came forward to me, I just said, we allotted what was budgeted, but come next budget cycle, I'll bring it up and try to get a little bit more in there. Now, again, realizing that times are tough on our end and we want to keep tax rates low. It won't be a huge pot of money, but I did say I would bring forward something that would help top some of that up.
Okay, well, you created a full queue, so that'll give the CFO a bit more time. Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, I like where you're going with this, Councillor Berg. However, is it enough? And so if you're going to go for 27,000, you know, what's going to make an impact? $1,000 for each one of the group. And when you take a look at the number of, there are 8 groups here that could get fundings.
Well, that's actually a different thing from what I was told. So
that was in capital and we already approved that.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is
so
different.
We're on page 31. Sorry, Councillor O'Connor. Under, no, I apologize. We're on page, I just had it. Give me 1 second. 21. And so under protective and public and protective services, sport development, wellness, and culture encompasses our community funding support, and the CFO is just getting a breakdown right now.
Okay, and what line?
Halfway down the page, sport development, wellness, and culture. So in that $7 million.
Okay, it's under umbrella.
Yeah. So we're trying to figure out what that looks like right now. I'm going to go. Oh, go ahead, Ms. Whiteway.
Thank you. So just looking at the community group funding, so our total grants within that budget is $2.5 million. And so we have just over 2 that go to community groups. We did allocate any and all emergency funds that have come up. So it's something already fully utilized. One additional comment I'd like to make is that we could look at increasing the enhancement funding as a recommendation in terms of process. So this is our grants under 15,000. So perhaps that's what administration would say could be a more streamlined process and still achieve what you were looking for. So we could increase the enhancement funding. It's a shorter, easier process for application, and it would meet that, it would sort of be in that under 15,000.
Okay, I'm going to go through the rest of the queue. Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. You know, I really want to support every worthwhile organization in this community. And I know the effort and the time that council and administration put in, and some of us had sleepless hours over the cuts that we were making or insinuating could be made. For me, your motion is, although it's all really good in heart, I just don't see it being practical. I mean, for the groups that got funded to get a little top up, that's great. But as CFO Waitway said earlier, if we're going to add more to the money and we're not going to streamline it, then we have to reopen the process, which means staff time, which means council time, which means the admin staff time of the organizations that didn't get any money, and now they're fighting over this little bit of a pot just to get something from it. And I know that there are a variety of very worthwhile organizations that applied to our community group funding and got nothing. And I've heard that very loudly over the last month. And that's fine. You know, I said, well, just keep asking. And if you ever hit emergency, we have emergency community group funding as well for situations such as that. And I think that's the top up that you're actually looking for, is that when our community groups are in need, as the mayor asked earlier, do we have that emergency community group funding available for people that they could request from us? And we have used that in the past. We used it quite a bit during COVID. And I think here's a safety net for those ones that didn't get it. So unfortunately, I do want to support your motion, but here today I cannot.
Councillor Bosch.
Thank you. Although I do appreciate the motion, and I would look at, you know, maybe more money in the future. My concern is opening the reapplication process, and then others coming in to apply that haven't applied in the past, or decide, hey, I want to apply and get, you know, $2,000 more than what I applied for. I think it would just create a lot of work and a lot of reapplying to that for a little bit of dollars coming back. Maybe we could look at this as a whole, you know, maybe council of the whole, or maybe it's 50,000 that we want to raise it to. But I think in the process that it's kind of feels like it's in the middle of right now, I think it would cause a lot of havoc.
Councillor Blackmore.
I don't see the process as being challenging. We have all of the applications. Our staff is very familiar with all of the applications. They're not significantly out of date. To me, it would not be a horrendous task to go back through those organizations, those applications, and topping up where we were significantly below the original ask, or in fact didn't fund them at all. I don't see it as being a challenging or difficult task. And I don't see that we need to ask them to reapply at all. We already know what their budgets look like, what they need, and what they were given, and what they, as compared to what they ask. So I would support the motion and ask administration to not complicate the issue by adding in another layer of applications, is simply review what we have received and make decisions accordingly. I know that the people who work in sport development, who look at those applications, know those organizations really well, and I don't feel we need to start from scratch.
I'm going to go to Councillor Bressie, then I'm going to jump in the queue.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Blackmore. I was going to suggest the exact same thing. We intentionally funded for future years so that I think we could go back and relook and we don't have to open the whole process again. I'd also point out that I argued very hard to increase community group funding when we made those allocations. And I was told, now is not the time to do that. Talk at budget. So for those of you that are saying, now that we're a budget, well, it's not the time to talk about that, I can't express how frustrating that is to me. And if you don't want to increase community group funding, fine. That's a reasonable position, but be honest about it. Don't just keep on saying, hey, push it back to the next thing. And then when we get there, say, no, now's not the time either.
Question for Chief Lemieux. If based on this conversation, would your expectation be that administration bring back to the appropriate standing committee recommendations that don't exceed this amount, or would you think that administration would be comfortable going out and making those decisions?
So the reason administration's talking about a process going back, looking for applications, is because that's what our policy states.
Right.
However, if council's direction is different, if you want us to just go back and revisit the current applications, we can do that. But we're just saying that's current policy.
Yeah, and so that was my point. I don't think this is that our administration couldn't do it. Our policy says that this is the process, and so I think that that's a fair consideration. I don't even know if 27.5 is actually what's needed. So maybe it's more, maybe it's less. So I think if council has an interest in this, I think there's another way to do it. Personally, if I recall from community group funding, administration never said, hey, by the way, we've maxed every dollar, we really could use more. There was people that were funded and people that weren't based on the assessment, and community and council and committee approved that. So, Councillor O'Connor.
Yeah, I echo that. I just hope that administration, do you feel confident that it would not complicate it? Or is there more? Are you going to go back and say, hey, I want another 10,000?
Chief Lemieux.
Again, we'll follow direction from council. If council...
Oh, you're passing the buck. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bosch.
I guess for me, it's not a question if we don't want to give more money to people. That's not the question. The question is what's in our policies and how are we going to abide by our policies. And if this one, among the thousands that we have, if you're going to make a deliberate change, then have a plan that goes with it, not just willy-nilly. Because I like this idea, I'm going to change it. We have policies for a reason. So I would like to revisit this in a more appropriate manner than what we're seeming to do here. There's a lot of back and forth, and we've only been talking about it for 10 minutes.
A question for Councillor Berg before I go to Chief McEachran. Would you take a friendly amendment to up to an additional 27,500? Okay. Chief McEachran. You're in the queue. Oh, you're Invest GP. Okay. Ms. Whiteway.
Sorry, but thank you, Mayor Clayton. Just in terms of just to address it in the conversation around process, there is the enhancement funding piece that's brought back annually. So if that would be our recommendation for the most simplified process. So if an increase was decided upon, or we could bring back a proposal at that time. And if the community groups are looking for more, we may be able to have what that number really should be. So perhaps that could be a way to address an increase in community group funding on an annual basis. So using that enhancement piece, which will be done again next year.
All right. So, seeing no one else in the queue, there is a motion in your e-scribe. Committee amend the 2024 operating budget under community group funding to add it up to an additional 27,500. Call the question.
May I close?
Sorry. Yeah.
I'm actually going to move an amendment unless Councillor Berg takes it as friendly. I would like to amend that to do community enhancement funding. I'll respect what staff's saying in terms of process. I want to get more money to community groups. In the perfect world, we would have increased community group funding and gone through it, but I also hear what staff's saying, and so I'm going to move that amendment unless it's taken as friendly.
And I'll accept it.
That's a friendly amendment to the community enhancement group funding, or enhancement funding rather, and then Councillor Berg to close.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Clayton. And Councillor Bresci and I did have that same conversation right after the funds were allocated, and the signal was to bring it back to budget, which I then relayed back to the community groups that I'm familiar with and said, I'm going to take this back to budget. And so here we're having the conversation. Where I actually come up with that number is when I reviewed the list as to what I felt would have been adequate. I felt we were about $30,000 shy. And so it wasn't a huge amount, but, 2,000 here, 5,000 there. it added up to right around $30,000 off the top of my head is what I felt we were shy in helping out some of these organizations. So the number isn't pulled from the air. It was just, this is what I wished we could have done. So now that we're budget time and that number still rings in my head. It's not a huge amount. And again, the way I saw it is that paperwork was only submitted months ago. So the information is still fresh. And I trust our administration will allocate those funds as the groups need, not necessarily as I would direct. I'm sure their list would look different than mine, but I just genuinely felt that we could do better for our community groups. They do so much to enhance our quality of life through their volunteer efforts, and it would just be nice if we could adequately help them out just a little bit more.
Ms. Whiteway?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Could I just maybe confirm, is the intention that this be one time in 2024 or ongoing forever?
I would love it ongoing.
Okay, well, that was your close. I guess that changes the conversation for me, so I don't know if I'm comfortable taking that as a close. Ongoing makes it a different conversation.
Sure, then just for this one budget cycle then.
Thank you. All right, so I'll call the question.
Councillor Thiessen in favor.
That carries unanimously. So we are done our operating our capital. Nobody touched the queue. We are going to take 5 minutes for our senior leadership team and our CAO and our financial team to put some numbers together. We'll have a presentation. Then there are a couple of business motions that we need to complete. So we will be back, I'll be fair, 7 minutes. See you then. Good afternoon. Welcome back to day 3 of Budget Deliberations 2024. We are now going to turn it over to our CFO for a presentation and calculations based on the multiple days of conversation and where we are at this point. Ms. Whiteway.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So I'm just going to pull up an update slide for the results of the decisions made. So here you will see that the revenue required for 2024 is now only just over 5 million. This is a required tax increase of 4.05%. That's an estimated monthly impact to an average residential home of $10.54. In addition to that, I did want to update on Council Strategic Initiatives Fund and what's remaining as a balance there, and it's at 1.256 million.
In addition, sorry, Ms. Whiteway, could you also update us on where we are at with financial stabilization?
Certainly, Mayor Clayton. So if you, in the budget book on page 121, we have provided a forecast. So we are estimating that once we receive the outstanding funds from the ATCO streetlight investment, the estimated balance in that reserve should be just over 21 million.
Okay, thank you. I have a comment, and then I see Councillor Plotz in the queue. I think that Council's done some significant work over the last couple of days. I also want to recognize the fact that our administrative team and our CAO put countless hours into this presentation. These numbers that were brought forward were based on status quo with a couple items of Council's strategic priorities added in. The initial 6.09 was a large number, and these cuts come with some reduction in service, some organizational impacts, and some difficult choices. For me personally, I think we should be proud of the work we've done over the last few days. However, it's still not, in my opinion, quite enough. I think there is an opportunity here for us to support our community, and there are a couple funding streams that would make sense to me. Council has a strategic initiatives fund to prioritize projects that are important to Council. I know the the success of our residents and businesses is extremely important to our council. And with that, in times of need, I think that's when we are strategic with some of our funds. I'm hoping one of my colleagues will consider taking $500,000 from our Council Strategic Initiative Fund, as well as $500,000 from Financial Stabilization, which would give us $1 million on top of that, which, Ms. Whiteway, with $1 million, could you tell me what the tax rate would look like? 3.2, I think.
Just bear with me one moment.
You betcha. It's more than
Thank you for your patience. So we're looking at 3.28%.
Thank you. So speaking to that, I'm hoping one of my colleagues will consider making this motion to put the tax increase at 3.28. Now is a great time for us to be strategic with our initiatives fund. And I recognize that our reserves do need some support and they need some fattening up. But now is not the time to fatten up your reserves. Now is the time to support the community. So $500,000 out of strategic initiatives and $500,000 out of financial stabilization. Although it may only be dollars per month for a family, dollars per month matter right now with increased costs in utilities and gas and mortgages and everything. So I'll recognize Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I was actually going to ask if we could get how many dollars per month would this represent for a family?
If it was at 3.28, what would that equal, Ms. Whiteway?
I can get that fairly quickly. It should be $8.52.
Approximately $2 reduction. Yep, you bet. Councillor Blackmore.
I would be happy to move that we replace capital tax spending by $1 million, taking $500,000 from council strategic plans and $500 from financial stabilization to further reduce the tax burden on our citizens. Having been very poor occasionally in my life and trying to raise children while being very poor, I understand completely the pain that people are experiencing right now when it's a struggle to know whether they should be paying their power bill, their heating bill, or buying new shoes for their kids. Every dollar we can put back in every dollar we can leave in their pockets is good for our community, and it's good for the future of our community. So I hope that you will support me in this motion.
And just to be clear, it's $500,000 for the e-scribe. So that motion is in order. I'm thinking it's under, there we go. It's in, for council who's on their e-scribe, it's under item 15. We're just gonna take one brief pause. But for council, just so you know, it's in your e-scribe under committee take $500,000 from council strategic initiative funds and $500,000 from financial stabilization reserve to lower the expected tax increase to 3.28%. We'll just pause for a moment before I recognize the others in the queue. We are good. Councillor Blackmore has confirmed that the motion as indicated in the e-scribe is her intent. I'll open it up for discussion or debate on the motion, recognizing Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I certainly understand where this is coming from, and I certainly get how much a lot of our residents are struggling right now. That being said, that's also been the conversation every single budget that I've had here at council is we can't raise taxes this year because our residents are struggling. We can't raise taxes because our residents are struggling. My entire time on council, we haven't raised taxes at all. We're still charging the average residential house what we charged them when I started council six years ago. When I look at our tax revenue, if I'm doing my math right, we're growing about 1% a year of the total tax revenue we're growing. no other organization has been able to do that. My groceries have gone up by 200%. My power bill's probably gone up by 30-40% over that time. My mortgage is about to take a big hit, and at some point, I recognize that my taxes have to go up as well, which I don't like. But they say that two things in life are certain: death and taxes. I think something we should be trying to do with our taxes is making those as certain as possible, making them predictable, making them so that residents never have a massive increase to their tax bill in 1 year. And that's where we're heading to this budget right now, is giving residents a massive tax hike in the future. We've already cut capital tax in ways that I think are one-time cuts, unless we want to see our roads massively decline. Here, we're artificially lowering taxes for 1 year by cutting from reserves, but that's not a structural cut. That's a cut that needs to be made up in future years. It's going to be a big increase in the future. And so for me, I'd rather have little increases every year than a massive increase in a few years, which I think is where we're heading to if we're going to go towards this. For me, I think that politically saying, hey, we're keeping it at 3% is very comfortable for us. I don't know if saving $2 a month really increases the comfort of our residents on an actual day-to-day basis at all. But I do think in the future, if they see a tax increase of 7-8% to make up for the choices we're making this year, then that will be very uncomfortable for them. So I get the intention, but I just can't support it.
Councillor Thiessen.
And thank you very much, Mayor Clayton. I'm in the same boat. I entered into this budget discussion after talking with many members of the community, very clearly stating that if we can get our tax increase under 5%, we're going to be doing something good. And we have to applaud ourselves, not just for the hard cuts that we made, but for the beneficent adds that we made into our budget as well. And this is really responsible. I think, a budgeting process. There's lots of thought that each member of our council put together in order to get this tax rate down 2% from where it was, while also still adding into the budget. Councillor Bessie's made mention of a lot of my points, but I will go back to the saving our residents money. We're talking about $2 a month. I can't even buy this cup of coffee for $2 a month. Let alone a pair of shoes for my kids. So I don't know what kind of savings we're actually generating, and I don't know what kind of hurt we might be passing on to future administration and councils of the city of Grande Prairie, let alone the residents, which my family members in Manitoba and Winnipeg, they were privy to lots of these low tax years. And then when they got their new mayor, Brian Bowman, a few years ago, they went 10, 8, 6, 10. That was their 4-year budget plan, and I don't want to start looking at numbers like that. I feel very comfortable with the single digits. I feel very comfortable with under 5, and I feel very comfortable with only adding $10 a month to everybody's tax bill. I think it's responsible financial planning, and I know we're all in tough times, but I do believe there is an expectation in our community that taxes are going to go up because everything else is going up. It's our job to make sure that they don't go up unmanageably. So, and I think we've done a great job of that. So congratulations to administration and staff on doing this. I hope we defeat this motion and walk out of here proud with all the hard work that we've done.
Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. Chief White, can you just remind me again what is in our council strategic initiatives fund after all the budget allocations we made today?
Prior to the motion.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. So prior to this motion, it's $1.256 million.
Okay, and just so I fully understand this, so at the end of next budget cycle, would that money stay in that account for future councils, or what's the intent with that fund when this council term ends? Does it roll over to the next council?
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I suppose that would be a decision of council of what to do with that. And with the last round, yes, it was rolled forward and continued on.
Okay, I got to give this some thought. Thank you.
Councillor O'Connor.
I will echo the comments of my fellow councillors that I think we're setting ourselves up for failure in the next number of years when we'll have double digits, and that's what people do not want. I've had calls from people saying, give us a little bit every year and we can live with that. But if we're keep taking money out, it's giving a false picture. We need to be able to say it's something that's predictable, and let's not set us up for double-digit increases in the next couple of years. So I won't be supporting this motion.
I will remind council that on the screen there was a slide that showed the next few years, and none of them indicated a double-digit increase. So to indicate and potentially scare residents that if you don't reduce taxes, there will be future double-digit increases is actually incorrect, and it's misinformation. I would like to point out that we've discussed over the last few days that potentially LGFF funding will increase in 2024. That's an opportunity to bring that projected 5% tax increase next year down. I also want to talk about future investment in our economy. We have seen slower growth, and our reputation, unfortunately, is that our taxes are very high. We've worked very hard to hold close to zero over the multiple years, as Councillor Bressie has indicated. This is still an increase at 3.28. It's still, the message will be, we all know in the street, you already were the highest and now you just increase them. Well, the reality is we're not the highest. The reality is the average tax bill for the average house price in Alberta puts us around 6th or 7th. But the point being that we have an opportunity to use funds that were identified and given as a privilege to council based on our decisions to take initiatives to support our residents. This is an opportunity to use this fund to support our residents. I think that financial stabilization reserve is pretty self-explanatory. So it's stabilizing financial impact. To have $1 million reduction, and yes, we have reduced over the past few years, but we've worked very hard to clean up our expenses. Our expenses, as shown at the introduction of this budget, are right in line with every other mid-sized city, not in relation to our partners, but our partners, our municipal partners have the opportunity to see increased revenues on a regular basis. Never mind the fact that they have revenue streams that we're not privileged to have the opportunity to spend. So we spend very efficiently. To be able to reduce the impact, albeit only $2 a month, it sets us on a path, on a message of what our community values. Our community values future investment. Our community values the businesses that are here today. Our community and our council values being strategic with its dollars. So this $1 million, in my opinion, would be strategic and have significant impact on the residents and the future investment in our community. Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Clayton. After giving some thought and hearing that, I will be supporting this motion. I do agree, and when I look forward, our tax increases are minimal. I do want to point out our tax increases that we just had put on the screen are going to actually higher than what CIBC would get in forecasting inflation as well. So we are going to be a little bit above inflation for the next 3 years in this budget of what was forecasted. So I can support this motion. Just thinking about it from an economic development percentage, and maybe it's a perception thing, and a lot of what we do is about perception. Having lower taxes is going to create more economic development, more than a lot of other things that we do. It's still the single biggest thing I hear from business components out there is our taxes are too high. I can talk to them in purple in the face like Councillor Thiessen's jacket. It doesn't seem to change it. If we keep our taxes going up and up and up, it signals the wrong message. And so I think that us moving it down to this and being below 4 and being actually closer to low 3s is actually a really, really positive sign for our community. So I will be supporting this.
Councillor Bosch.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I will be supporting this motion, and the reason is particularly half of it is coming from the Council's Strategic Fund. And to me, that is for things that are extraordinary. So Rising Above, Maskwa, things that we're supporting already. But we have to keep in mind, after listening to our financial advisors, that this next 18 months is going to be a tough ride. Everybody thought that, oh yes, we always say it's been tough and it's tough and it's tough. This is different. This really is different. Mortgages are coming due. Food banks are being used at an incredible rate. This is not the same as what we had years ago. So putting council strategic funds into things that are not a normal cost of business, I think is okay to use. The stabilization fund, yeah, that's what it's there for. We also have to keep in mind that this is $8.52 for each resident per month, but our commercial businesses, our non-residential businesses pay a lot more out of this tax base. And so this is not just $8.52 a month for them. And we have to be cognizant of that. So using our council's strategic fund, I think, shows that we have goodwill in regards to meeting people where they're at this point in time.
Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, might I remind everybody that with every $500,000 we peel out of reserves, we're going to have to replace that in future years. And with our Council Strategic Initiative Fund, with every new thing that pops up that we can't foresee here today, we can apply every single dollar to help out tomorrow. So what we do today to take $2 or to put $2 back into the pocket of everybody, we still have to replenish with increased taxes or potentially for reserves. And our Council Strategic Initiatives Fund will be depleted so that we'll be able to do less helpful things for people as they emerge in this year ahead that we might be financially pinched all over the community. To me, I don't find this is strategic use of our money. It might. I don't think it shares a great benefit to all the community members that would be saving $2. If we were to put it towards something maybe a bit more useful or something that the community can grow and thrive in, then I would say that that's strategic. But simply to reduce the taxes on a $2 like savings that nobody's going to notice at the end of the day, I don't think is strategic at all. And I still am not in support of this.
Councillor Bressie and then Councillor Blackmore to close.
Great, thank you. Sometimes I'm accused of being a naive optimist when it comes to politics, and I'm quite happy in some ways to see my colleagues being so much more optimistic than me. I just don't think this is going to have the reputational impact that some seem to think this is having. The message coming out today is, holy smokes, we already have high taxes and our taxes are going up. And I think that's the unfortunate, misinformed narrative that's going to be pushed forward, whether it's a 3% or the 3% or a 4%. I don't think that this $1 million is going to meaningfully move our reputation. I don't think it's going to meaningfully change anything. I do think that $1 million, if we actually want to help businesses, or especially if we actually want to help individuals, there's so many better ways that $1 million could get spent. Right now, I'm not hearing from business. Of course, businesses would like to pay less taxes, but way a bigger concern I'm hearing in the community is labor attraction. $1 million to plant more trees, get more recreation amenities, make sure our community is safer, I think will go a lot further towards helping business out than anything else. But for me, I'm often thinking about our poorest residents, our single parents, minimum wage, mom or dad trying to raise a bunch of kids. And for them, I don't think this is helping them significantly. This is aid that we're giving to every family across the city. And I'll tell you, $2 a month makes absolutely zero difference for my family or any of our families or the vast majority of families in our community. $2 a month doesn't make a difference. $1 million a year, invest in our food banks. $1 million a year, invest in our transit system. $1 million a year invested in creating low-cost recreation. I can think of so many places we could put $1 million a year to help our poorest residents, our ones that are struggling the most with inflated costs. That would go so much further than giving $2 a month off every single family in the city. And so for me, I'm all for pulling out of reserves to lessen the burden on our residents. I don't think this is the right way to do that.
Councillor Blackmore to close.
I feel that we're stuck on this $2 thing, and the reality is it's not a $2 a month change to people. The number of people who are the average house in Grande Prairie, I think, is maybe one person. It varies from family to family, and how the family to family spend their money also varies. I'd also like to add that it's not as simple as saying we're giving people a 3% tax increase, which is, by the way, an increase. It's not a reduction, it's an increase. They're also getting an increase on the Grand Spirit Foundation requirement that comes off their tax bill, and they're also going to get an increase from the provincial government for the school tax. So it's not simple to say that it's a 3% tax and people here can afford it. I find that offensive to say to people that, oh yeah, you can afford this. It's no problem for you. Trust me, I can pay it, so you can pay it. I find that naive and insulting, and I feel that we have to make every move we can to make the city as affordable as we can. And if it's 50 cents, great. If it's $10, great. But it's got to be something, and I ask you to support this motion.
opposed, Councillor Blackmore. I will call the question. I just need one moment. So as in your e-scribe, it is there. Call the question. Please vote.
Councillor O'Toole in favor.
And carried 6-3. All right, there is a couple items of business that are also remaining. They are in your e-scribe. I recognize Councillor Bressie.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Clayton. Would you like me to make all three of them, or just
Go for it?
Sure. I would move the council approve the 2024 operating budget and the 2024 capital budget as amended. Approve in principle the 2025-2027 operating capital budgets as amended, and give 3 readings bylaw C-1395M being an amendment to the fees, rates, and charges bylaw. Just speak this. I want to echo what some have said in terms of the extremely huge shout out to our administration. I can't believe how well supported we were. We threw some curveballs last minute and the answers were right at our fingertips when we needed them. I know that years ago that was not the kind of support we could have got in this decision making. So thank you so much. And I know it's not just our chiefs in this room. I know it's our directors watching them and our director staff watching alongside them that are providing that support. And I know that we've also been able to do it not just because of the effort we get there a few days during budget, but because of the work that goes in all year improving our systems, making this more efficient. So thank you to our staff. I also want to acknowledge we just had a kind of heated debate about the last motion, and there were a few that we had heated debates on. And I know that every single one of us lost votes around this table. I think I might have lost more than anyone else. I don't know. But at the end of the day, I really do appreciate this is a budget I have a lot of confidence in because I really trust us as a body a lot more than I trust me as an individual. So really encourage council, even if there's a few votes that were tough to lose, that we'd all support this unanimously.
Call the question.
Councillor O'Toole in favor of all 3.
And with that, it's carried unanimously. And with that, our budget deliberations are concluded. Thank you so much.